We're live.
We're live. All right, thank you, everyone.
You're ready to get started. If you could please take your seat. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to October 16th annual meeting of the Children's Services Council of Leon County. There will be opportunities for public comment noted on the agenda and will be offered prior to any council vote. So please complete any comment cards to Ms. Holly over here to my left. And if you have public comment that you're going to wish to provide to us. Council members, please also remember to be recognized to uplift your name cards, and that's how we will operate as far as acknowledging you to speak. If you will, can we go ahead and start a roll call?
Councilmember O'Brien. Councilmember Mark Stiller. Here. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Judge Hobbs.
Here.
Superintendent Hannah.
Here.
Commissioner Cummings.
Here.
Treasurer Mitchell.
Here.
Vice Chair Watts.
Here.
Chair Jones. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda, but prior to that, we need to make some amendments by moving the resolutions to when Chair Jones can actually arrive. He had a work meeting going over. So if I could just get someone to approve the amendment of the agenda where we'll discuss the.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the agenda with the amendment that you mentioned.
I second, Mr. Chair.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that moves, and we will move forward to. So we will now discuss the general public. Do we have any cards?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
First to speak is Mr. Kari Henry. Please approach the dais, state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Kari Henry, 5408 Terrain Drive.
That's it.
Okay. Good evening, council. Wonderful to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am here, my brother and I are here on behalf of Siena to discuss the matter of the 23 summer funding. I know that was a resolution brought up in a prior meeting, and we had sent correspondence regarding that summer funding initiative. And I had spoken with a few people, and I wanted to discuss today. I know we got 3 minutes, but to discuss today that I want to say from the beginning. We had a great summer. It was a great wonderful time for the kids, a great learning opportunity. However, given the circumstances as to how things happen, I want to say from the beginning that to seek into the whole community council that I personally will accept responsibility for how things flowed. So that was on me, and I am not looking to shift blame or etc. or whatnot. I just want to start from the beginning saying that I accept responsibility for it. I would truly appreciate the support you have given us in the past, and we are looking to hopefully strike an arrangement so that we can move forward and that you can continue to do the good work in the community. So I want to mention that hopefully have a conversation and that we can strike an agreement as I mentioned before.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir. The next public comment is from Ms. Jerry Clark. Ms. Clark, if you could approach here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Please state your name and your address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Jair Clark. My address is 1815 Hartsfield Road, Tallahassee, Florida 32303. I am here on behalf of Old Child Leon as their interim executive director to discuss our partnership with Children's Health Society and the Family Resource Center that was established. Old Child Leon is in full support of the work that the Family Resource Center has done and continues to do. We have a partnership with a part-time behavioral health navigator that is working with neighbors to establish their children with behavioral health services. So far, the reviews have been very positive. The partnership with the team and with the neighbors has been amazing, and we hope to have the opportunity to continue to support them and the Children's Services Council as a whole.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Clark. Have any other public comment?
We have no more general public comment, but we do have a couple of reserved parts for later other agenda topics.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, we will move on to the consent agenda and let's see here,
I will move the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
right, you have a second.
Chair, second.
All right, so, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, thank you. So that passes. And, okay, so we now have, let's see, if there's no any discussion, okay, we've done that. Okay, so now we'll have a general council update by Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item listed under the update is the resolution to approve the amended bylaws, which I understand will be later in the agenda. Next item is the parliamentary procedures review. Board members, on page 22 of your agenda packet, you will see of Robert's Rules of Order, including a number of example motions, tips and reminders, and general suggestions for adhering to Robert's Rules of Order. As a collegial body, this board conducts its meetings according to a parliamentary procedure. Parliamentary procedure is designed to ensure not only a smooth and orderly flow to every meeting, but also to ensure that each board member has an opportunity to address actions that become before the whole board, have their say before a matter is voted on. The system this board has selected is Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules are by far the most widely used source of parliamentary procedure. They're adopted by all different manner of boards, homeowners associations, nonprofits, local governments throughout the state, cities, counties, special districts, et cetera. They basically prescribe the form of an agenda, that is the roadmap for the conduct of business at a given meeting, from the opening to the adjournment of the meeting. In particular, how a given action or a discussion will unfold is typically done through a motion practice. The motion is made after a board member is recognized by the chair. A motion can be made once the motion is seconded. The motion is discussed, deliberated, public comment is received, and ultimately the matter is voted on. If the matter fails to get a second motion or dies, the matter does not have a majority of those present voting on the matter likewise dies. And various other motions that can come about. Generally, the rule is only one substantive matter can be discussed at a time. Subsequent motions after the main motion are limited to amendments or procedural considerations associated with the main motion. Like I say, there's a cheat sheet in your packet. It's a great overview. More overviews are available online. We as a board have the good fortune of having several board members who have extensive experience serving on boards that observe Robert's Rules of Orders and have acted as parliamentarians, if you will, as questions about the conduct of our meetings for over time. I too am a bit of a parliamentarian, though I suggest I'm not as experienced as Chair Cummings. However, if anyone has any questions regarding Robert's Rules of Order, the conduct of meetings, et cetera, I'd be glad to answer those questions.
All right, thank you very much. So we can now, if you will,
Mr. Chair.
yes.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, okay. Your chair, Mr. Chair.
All right, Chair Jones, we were going to actually go back to the bylaws resolution and discuss that.
Very good. The next item under general council update is resolution 2024-06 to approve amended bylaws. The state statute which governs Children's Services Council provides that each council can adopt its own bylaws. Bylaws are essentially the internal rules of an organization by which the board members are appointed, by which board members serve as officers of the board. Bylaws may detail things like the responsibilities of the executive director, how voting takes place, basically the internal rules of procedure for a given board. This board adopted its bylaws in 2022, as I recall. They have been amended on at least 2 occasions previously to refine the rules so that they meet current needs of the board. You have before your resolution, which would adopt 2 relatively minor amendments to the existing bylaws. First, the scope of the responsibilities and duties of the executive director are expanded to include orientation for new board members. And also there was previously a requirement that the preliminary budget for the forthcoming fiscal year be presented to the board by no later than May of each year. However, in light of the recently revised meeting schedule, by which meetings now occur every other month or quarterly, there is no longer typically going to be a May meeting of the board. So the amendment moves the date by which the preliminary budget has to be presented to June of each year. Those are the two amendments under consideration for bylaws.
Mr. Chair, I'll move resolution 2024-06, amending our bylaws to include those two minor changes of the budget coming in June as opposed to May, and expanding the executive director's authority to include orientation for new members.
Second.
You're in charge. It's been properly moved to second. All those in favor, signify by, oh, is there any public comment?
There's no public comment, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ayes have it. All right, Sunshine, item C.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Children's Services Council of Leon County is an independent special district, and as such, it is a unit of local government similar in many respects to a city or county. As a unit of local government, it's subject to the state sunshine laws and also the public records laws. The sunshine laws dictate that every meeting of this board must be noticed to the public, must be open to the public, by which the public can come and participate in the meeting, and a record of the proceedings have to be kept in the form of minutes. Also, the board prepares and makes available to the public before the meeting starts an agenda. Again, it guides the flow of the meeting, the items that are going to be considered during that meeting. On page 28 of the board member packet, there is an overview, some of the requirements of the sunshine law. Again, it's basically open meetings and public records laws. If anyone has any questions about the requirements of the sunshine law, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be glad to get with you about any questions you may have. Sometimes I may have to do a little research to get to the bottom of a particular item, but I will circle back to you as soon as I can.
All right, now D.
Lastly, Chair, I have for your consideration an update that it is the time of the year when the executive director's evaluation process begins. As long-standing board members may recall, at this time of the year, I circulate to each board member an evaluation instrument that the board has previously approved that basically serves as reflects the scope of services for which the executive director was hired. It has a number and a scale, I think 1 to 5, a series of questions about the executive director's performance and her ability to meet the tasks that were described in her scope. Under Sika's existing employment contract, the process for conducting the evals culminates in me gathering the responses from each board member, tabulating and summarizing them, presenting them to the chair. The chair discusses the results with Sika prior to the December board meeting, at which the results will be presented not only to the entire board, but in this particular evaluation cycle, it's time for renewal of Sika's contract. The board may recall that the executive director's contract currently provides a 2-year term, and we are basically reaching the end of the 2nd year. So amongst other things, I will present the evaluation results and basically a renewed contract unless the board feels otherwise for another 2-year term. That will happen at the December meeting of the board.
Yes, sir.
Hey, one quick question. So Chris, in the past, you've collected everything, you brought it to the executive committee. The executive committee discusses it again. In the past, we've asked the chair to meet one-on-one with the executive director, talk about, does she have any input, and take exception to anything that any of the comments that have been made. And it's after that point we go forward with the new contract, right?
Yes, sir. In fact, her original contract, which was for a 1-year term, had built into it that very process that stated that once the evaluation forms are returned, they are presented to the executive committee, which then discusses them and brings forth a recommendation to the full board at the next. However, her current contract eliminated that to kind of streamline the process. So now it's not required to make a stop at the executive committee before coming back to the full body.
Okay, so again, going back to last year and the year before, that I thought was really helpful, because when Dr. Glenn was the chair, the executive committee met, kind of discussed as part of a regular meeting. And then Dr. Glenn was able to meet with Sika one-on-one to sort of express all that had, come up, and that, I think it's kind of a healthy thing for the chair and the executive director to speak. When we eliminate, I mean, we did it last year,
There is no prohibition against doing it. We
Okay.
can certainly do it again, and don't recall
didn't we do it last year and the year before?
I don't remember because I missed those meetings.
No. Did Dr. Glenn meet one-on-one with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
and I-
Yeah. So the chair always meets,
Okay, so I did. remember.
So
You weren't at that meeting. Oh, yes, okay.
and there will there'll be an executive committee meeting in early December.
And that's when, Mr. Chair, we would, I'd say to you, hey, will you please have a conversation with the executive director, tell her what she's doing really well, things that areas room for improvement. And then almost nothing official in terms of, it would then come to the full board.
in prior years, the committee made a recommendation to the full board, but it's
Right.
ultimately a decision of the full board as to whether or not there's a salary increase, whether or not the contract is renewed, in this case. It's just a recommendation.
Okay.
That process sounds fine, but this process isn't already codified.
No, sir, it was in her original contract, but in her renewed contract, it dispensed with the requirement for a stop at the executive committee. Although it doesn't prohibit it.
Although it did stop. Mr. Watson,
We did do it.
yeah, I mean, I remember it.
My moving forward, I totally embrace the process as intended, but I do believe it should be something that we codify. Put in our policy.
Yes, sir. Among other changes that make
Especially we don't have to worry about arbitrary remembrance.
for her renewed contract, which I will bring forth to the executive committee and ultimately the board, I can build that back in, that there's a stop at the executive, but assuming parties are agreeing.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I was just asking, Mr. Chair, does it require a motion to include an intermediary step in the process so that he can include it back in the
Is there
process?
consensus in terms of the process?
What now?
I'm just asking, is there consensus? Everybody's agreed, pretty much agreed. If everybody's agreed, I think Mr. Rowe can roll with that, Commissioner Cummings, and just we'll come back and we'll revisit this following everyone receiving the instrument for evaluation, at which time we'll come back as described. And then what may require a motion is that we would codify our process to update our policy to include that information.
Right.
We can put that in the bylaw fact.
Okay, well, if by
So
consensus
we'll bring
we
it back in
agree
December.
that there'll be an agenda item for that purpose that codifies this moving forward, then that works. There's consensus on that as well.
Yes, sir.
All right, then, we're moving right along.
And then, Mr. Chair, within the next couple of days, I will circulate to each board member individually a copy of the evaluation instrument, so they can.
And we'll use the same instrument that we've used in
Yes, sir.
previous.
That's right.
All right, thank you. All right. With that, we'll now go to committee reports, the nominating committee. Mr. Rowe?
Sir, you have before you, board members, resolution 2024-07, a resolution of the Children's Services Council of Leon County designating the chair, vice chair, and treasurer of the governing council effective as of October 1, 2024, and providing an effective date. The members proposed under this resolution are Darrell Jones as the chair, Terrence Watts as the vice chair, and Paul Mitchell as the treasurer.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Prior to any council discussion and public comment, is there a motion and second to approve the resolution?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of resolution 2024-07 is presented by Attorney Rowe.
Second. Seconded, properly moved and seconded by Superintendent Hannah. Is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Is there any discussion? All right, will you please call a roll call vote?
Councilmember Marsteller,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Judge Hobbs,
Yes.
Superintendent Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Treasurer Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watts,
Yes.
Chair Jones,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. The following persons are elected: Darrell Jones Chair, Terrence Watts Vice Chair,
Is that condolences?
and Richard Paul Mitchell,
That's right.
the treasurer. Richard, our treasurer, thank you so very much, and thank you for electing us, and we look forward to working with all of you as we continue the great work that we do here at the Children's Services Council, and thank you for the great work that you do as well. And to our fantastic staff and team, to all of you, thank you so very much. Like we say at the school board meeting, Superintendent, best is yet to come. All right, now we'll move to finance and budget. Mr. Mitchell.
I happy to answer any questions for the financials for September 2024. I know it's in your backup. Mr. Grayson is here to answer any questions that some arise. Yeah, and I would, just for purposes of discussion as well as my support, I would move the item.
The second. Second. Been properly moved and seconded that we would accept the Finance and Budget Committee report to the financials, recommended action, and program investments.
No.
No,
Just the final.
no, just the
That's the
financial
financials?
report
All right. All
for
right.
September of 2024.
All right. All those in favor of accepting the financials for September 24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Moved unanimously. Now recommended action for censure.
Okay, so at the last board meeting, our vice chair made the motion that the finance committee meet with legal counsel to discuss and make a recommendation to the full board the issue related to Siena and the $59,365.22 amount that they I'll say owed us. The committee made a recommendation that we file a breach of contract claim. Our attorneys are ready to do that. That is our recommendation. I will say this, and it isn't. Mr. Henry has already talked on this item. And I don't know if anybody else received a phone call. Mr. Henry was good enough to call me. I appreciated his sentiment of taking responsibility for not delivering fully on the contract and shared that with him. I also shared with him the sentiment of the committee, which I think he understood. And I spoke for myself and myself only, really with the advice of counsel. And that is, this $59,365.22 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to even an organization that collects property taxes. It's also a matter of the trust that the public has put in the Children's Services Council to spend their money wisely. And it's also a bit of symbolism to those vendors that work with us, that we hope for great results, but we intend to hold you accountable to the commitments that you've made. And when you haven't made them, we expect to be repaid, whatever the shortfall is that you were not able to deliver on. I think in everyone's packet, and we just got these today, so I just read this letter, is a letter from Mr. Henry that lays out a couple of different options. I shared with Mr. Henry, again, my position, and it was at the time of our vote, the position of the committee, that we seek reimbursement for all of the money, which would take off of the table. We stuck to that recommendation, several of the options that Mr. Henry lays out in his letter. I also shared with him that as far as I was concerned, at this point, and I'm going to say 60,000, so I don't have to keep looking down and seeing the exact number, that $60,000 has essentially been a loan over the last year, which is how long he's owed us this money. Again, it was back and forth, so it wasn't like he was handed a bill, but and it was an interest-free loan because we've not charged any penalties. And his options, the one that would have him repaying the full amount, which was the recommendation of the committee, would stretch monthly payments out over 3 years. That would be on top of the 1 year it's already been stretched out over. In my conversation with Mr. Henry, just so everyone knows, and this did not come up in the committee, it came up after the committee met. I said, you know, I would be open to the concept of 2 years plus the 1 year that's already been optioned out. So I throw all of that out to you as background on the item. But to say that the Finance Committee's recommendation was that we file a breach of contract claim in the courts seeking reimbursement for $59,365.22. That's the committee's recommendation. Committee also was very aware of the fact that sometimes just filing the claim doesn't mean you get paid back. And so it's really up to the full council to maybe find a balance between guaranteeing that we get paid back our neighbors' money, the tax dollars, and making a strong statement. So I think I've laid out the issue. There are other options in Mr. Henry's letter that would allow him to pay it back in services, and again, you can read it for yourself. But if we are sticking with the sentiment of the code, it is seeking reimbursement for the full amount.
If I may add, I too have had a conversation with Mr. Henry, and I'm just not getting the letter. And we can discuss it fully, but I am open to considering the contents therein and the options that are made available there. That would be difficult for me armed with this information to make a determination tonight, because these options were not available to us at the time of the Finance Committee meeting. But I'm also happy to hear what other members have to say. Anybody else like to add? I don't see anyone else. Yes, Mrs. Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just sort of speed read through this letter from Mr. Henry, also recognizing that they came before the board tonight. He specifically acknowledged and said he would take personal responsibility for the program funds. I'm looking at option one. I'm not sure, since this is public money, that we have the capacity to reduce the amount that's owed. I think we have an obligation to look at the full amount that's owed. And I think since we've just gotten this letter today, perhaps we could maybe refer it to our general counsel and the executive director to maybe look at it. I'm inclined to agree to option one because there is a guaranteed payment plan, maybe with a caveat that we have the monthly payments, but if there's any ability to pay more at any one time, a lump sum, that they would be amenable and willing to do so. But I think the repayment plan, over a 3-year period, it guarantees some funds. If we file suit for breach of contract, we'll end up perhaps with the judgment for that amount. Probably not be able to execute upon the judgment, so we would have expended attorney fees, filing fees, and costs, and still have an outstanding bill. So I don't know, I just tend to like to work with individuals, if we can, to come to a resolution, come to an agreement. I think this sort of guarantees what did old people say? I guess I'm old too. A bird in the hand.
That is what we say.
Better than two in a bush or something. You never heard of that, right?
Yes.
But anyway, and I think it took courage for the Henrys to come here tonight. Clearly, they're not trying to skirt their responsibility. They came before the council after that summer program and indicated to us some of the successes, and I believe they even brought some of the participants. So we know that they did have the program, perhaps not as successful, maybe not as many participants as they wanted. But I guess I respect the fact that they're not ducking and dodging, they're taking responsibility. And I would like to give them the opportunity to pay monthly. The other caveat is if at any point they stop making the monthly payments, then we still have that avenue of filing a lawsuit for breach of contract or whatever legal, ramifications that we have. But I think if we work with them, we certainly have the opportunity to receive some of the money back without litigation.
Well, Commissioner Cummings, I'm gonna recognize everybody that's just going back to what the committee was asked to make a recommendation. I don't disagree with what the council doesn't need to wait another meeting to make a decision. If it is the will of the council to follow option one, which is the one option where we receive all of our funds back, again, that would be consistent with what the committee recommended in terms of what we receive back. It also acknowledges and recognizes the ability to get money. So with that, I don't know, Mr. Chair, if I'm now the chair because it's the committee. So I'm going to recognize this one. Can I use that? Thank you.
Thank you. Just briefly, I concur with Commissioner Cummings' suggestion that should we enter into an agreement that allows for payments, that we definitely put into said agreement a trigger that sends us to court. Number one. Number two, I would also suggest that to Mr. Mitchell's point, this money has been outstanding for a year. We may be considering a payment plan over 2 more years, interest-free, that I would suggest that we consider, if we're going to do a payment plan agreement, that we consider some sort of penalty, some sort of financial penalty. I don't know, interest, I don't know what it would be. But I think in order to put some additional teeth into said payment arrangement, that we should consider doing something like that.
Mr. Watts?
Yes. So I don't know that, my opinion is I don't know that we will be in a position as a council tonight to vote on the potential option. I mean, I have questions along Commissioner Cummings, Ms. Marstiller, and to what Mr. Mitchell just articulated, which is if we were to go with option one, who is responsible for managing that payment plan? Who is responsible if there's a payment missed? what happens then? Is that up to Sika's team to micromanage that? I would like to see. So I don't know how I feel about them having to manage that, but I would like to see an actual, what that contract would look like. It laid out, to Ms. Marstiller's point, if there's a violation, if they miss a month, X, Y, and Z, I mean, this is extra workload again on the executive team. So I would like to see something before me. I think it would be valuable for us to have something before us to actually make a decision on versus voting tonight.
Yes, Mr. Rowe, it sort of in the spirit of what I'm hearing, is that something that you could bring back to the council that maybe everyone opines on? Seems like everybody is willing to agree to some sort of a repayment plan. How would it be managed? What would that settlement agreement look like? And perhaps you bring that back and along with a suggestion of what potential penalties that other governmental entities consider. And then you bring that back, that the whole council could take a look at it, because like you all, I don't know, I mean, this is the first time I'm looking at it, and the only one that looks good to me is we get our money back. Okay, Mr. Hannah, then you, Mr.
Would it be inappropriate, since we have them here, if you ask them a question, is that inappropriate? If I have a question for them, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
But my only concern is that I would rather, armed with this letter, if I may offer this, I mean, I'm not answering the question, your question, is that we would take this information back and we take it back to the finance committee, and then they come back, and then in the finance committee, I don't know that I would want us to enter into a public conversation with persons for whom we are making a decision at a committee of the whole. I would rather we take, armed with this information, refer this matter back to the finance committee to deliberate based upon the comments that have been made by all of us. Armed with that information, we kind of know that we want a payment plan, and that's the option. And then negotiate based upon some of what y'all have said. How do we collect the money? How does that occur, right? I'd rather do that because let me tell you where I am. I know the Henrys. I've known this family for years. And I also know the nobility of their intentions. I've recommended that grassroots organizations like them solicit these funds because I knew the impact that it would have, that it has had. Superintendent will agree. The schools that they have served, we've seen an uptick in their science schools on those statewide tests. So I know their impact. So if the fact that they've now come to us, which had been a concern before, but they haven't come to see us. They got to us late one time, they've come to us now. So let's spend a year, what's another month? Another 2 months, right? To come to some negotiation. Because what I know is that they and the rest of their professional colleagues and the intellectual capital they're able to harness has had a difference. And if they're willing to remain engaged, I'd like for us to find a way to do that. Mr. Finance.
Yeah.
So I'd like to offer a motion since you preside.
Yes, go ahead.
That we refer the Scientia letter, letter that they've transmitted to us back to the Finance Committee. And that we would deliberate and come back with recommendations based upon the comments that will be documented in the minutes by all the members of the Children's Services Council to come back to you with a recommendation based upon your comments. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I second the motion, but can I also offer like a friendly amendment to your motion? Refer it back to that committee in conjunction with the general counsel?
Yes, ma'am. With him. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And maybe also, Mr. Chair, who's not the chair, if we could also have all of the members of the council direct any ideas or thoughts that they have to the general counsel, so that when he comes to the finance committee, we are all prepared with all of the sentiments. So if anybody on the council has an idea for improvement, they would just get that idea to Mr. Rowe.
I accept both amendments.
Okay, and I, as a second, I accept.
Thank you, wherever we are.
Under
I got it.
comments, I guess.
So we have a motion and a,
Motion and a second, and there were just comments. If I'm looking at the calendar of the future meetings, the finance committee doesn't meet again until June the fifth.
No, you'll meet again in December.
We have a finance committee meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
they'll be
good,
meeting.
good. My bad. That's all I wanted to make sure is everyone kicking the can.
and I, Mr. Hannah, now might be a good time to just ask the question sort of to the universe.
Again, I made over. We will all have our chance to
Okay.
ask. I don't, but we ordinarily, public meeting of a jurisdiction,
Hence the reason I said to the universe.
yeah,
But if we could also ask so we have a motion and a second. With several different amendments that we work in consultation with the general counsel, and any ideas that members of the council have, if they would share them directly with the general counsel. He will come to our next finance committee meeting. I would encourage the Henrys to be there. And we will bring a recommendation back to the full council. Is that good? So why don't we take a roll call? We need public comments. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There is no public comment cards on this item.
All right, roll call.
Councilmember Marsteller,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Judge Hobbs,
Abstention.
Superintendent Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Treasurer Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watts.
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Now, we are now at fiscal year 2024-25 program investments and support budget review and approval.
Because you want me to take?
Yes,
I
let's
will.
take this one.
Absolutely. So on pages 51 and 52, you'll see the budget that was approved by this body. And this evening, what we are asking, what our chair has asked is if you could pay attention to page 52 under program investments and supports. There are 3 areas as well as some other ancillary areas that are programming that we would like you to look at and take some sort of action. Let me explain very quickly why. So due to circumstances, the Finance and Budget Committee was not able to look at this in depth because of some scheduling conflicts with the public schools and Superintendent Hannah and Chair Jones. However, specifically under kindergarten readiness, we have some programs that have already started their year, and we need to make some decisions so that we can provide the funding that we proposed here to help with their programming. So very quickly, what we are asking you to specifically look at is number 1, youth mentoring. And that is also our youth violence prevention. So that is the extension of phase 1, which you already approved, $166,000. And then phase 2, the $278,000, which would be continuing youth mentoring for those programs that we recommend should continue through May 31st. This evening, you will be looking at doing youth development year-round. We talked about that at the September meeting. Then you are looking at early learning or kindergarten readiness. So the ELC on-ramp continuation funding for $250,000. They have expended all of that funding from the year past. Rebound and recovery expansion for $650,000. that is expanding into the community-based early learning centers in proximity of the elementary schools where they implemented the program in the VPK 3, 4, and behavioral classrooms. Housing stability supports, which is the 500,000 that would be used for emergency shelters for families with children. And that is the work that we have done in partnership with Leon County and City of Tallahassee. So those are the meetings that I've had over the last, 2.5 years to see how we help with that situation. And then the other programming is another $500,000 that would be determined by the council. I believe there's a request for some additional money for emergency housing for the family emergency shelter. Then under youth developments and out of school time, we've got the year-round out of school time, which is what you'll hopefully approve today. And that's the 3.2 million starting in the summer and moving through the academic year of 25-26. We hold the expo and do the marketing for getting that program out to the community. That's the $10,000. We would like to do the summer internship program again for $250,000. We presented on that. And then last year we did a special needs scholarship program. We want to offer that scholarship program again, and that would be money provided on behalf of qualified families to vetted special needs programs. So instead of us funding the program, we're funding the family, and they will tell us what program they're going to send, where they want to send their child. And upon proof of attendance, we will provide that funding to the program. Postnatal support, pre and postnatal support, you've already approved. And then you go down to SIPs, which we will talk a little bit about today, but we want to do a workshop further on that one. We've got our capacity building, which is where we work with our providers to apply and ensure that they're complying. Our programs software, which is services and activities management information system. That is our yearly commitment to keep that up and running. Program research and analysis for when we do our independent program evaluations. We've been working with Vanguard and FSU on that. And then community outreach events. So that's our community engagement and sponsorships of the sort. Then you will see 174,000 that is available to put wherever you decide you'd like it to be put. So whether it is a program coming to us for special funding, or you want to add it to one of the other programs. So this is our program investment, which will total 6.788943, which is about 79% of the current budget for fiscal year 24-25. I know I said a lot, so I am ready for any questions.
The three you had, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The three you highlighted, youth mentoring, youth violence prevention,
Mhm.
early learning,
Mhm.
and the youth development programs.
Yes.
Those were when you were suggesting that there was not enough time to do what you need. In other words, if we don't vote on that, these can't continue. Is that what you were saying?
Right, our timing's gonna be off, particularly in kindergarten readiness, because on around, they started October 1. Rebound and recovery, we went ahead and had them go ahead and start because this council was very excited about the work that they did. And then housing stability, they've already started their program here. So particularly there, with youth development, we're looking at that this evening. We had the workshop on it. So we'd like to get that approval so that we can get that proposal out and running. Out and running, out to the public.
Yes, Mr. Superintendent.
A couple of questions. So when I add up the investment, program investment and the administrative expenses, where's the balance of the $9 million? What am I missing?
So if you go up to page 41,
Page 41?
page 40, I'm sorry, 51, flip it over. And you go to the top, you'll see our ad valorem proceeds, 8.4, fund balance, 508, and then the estimated entrance, 168 for a total of 9,078,000.
Right, that part I have, but on page 52, if I'm looking at the administrative expenses of 1.2 and the
Right,
program investments of 6.7, where's the rest of the?
So the subtotal for expense is actually 2.2. So right above total administrative expense, where it says subtotal expense,
Okay,
literally right above, it's
So-
2.2.
the
So
administration is 1.5, 1.2 of that 2.3.
right, administrative expense is 1.1, 1.2 of the 2.2. Because we don't add in the fees that we pay to be a special district, the money that we pay to have our money collected. Nor do we add in reserves
That's my.
for the administrative expense.
John,
Okay.
you want to clarify?
I just
Further?
wanted to comment, I think, Lieutenant Hannah's looking at, we got a subtotal of expense of 25% for administrative and 79. You add them together, they equal 104, it's like,
Oh, I might have a formula wrong.
but I think you've got a couple things that you don't add into. It shouldn't be added into the 25.
Right, I'm sure I have a formula wrong. I was an English major and we looked at this a billion times. So I'm sure I have a formula wrong in the percentage, but I know the numbers are correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question about our early learning kindergarten ready. How many contractors do we have
Or
for that segment? Early learning kindergarten readiness.
so in ELC, that money is funneled to ELC.
And
so-
then they.
And then they,
Okay,
right, and
okay.
it's
I
specific,
thought that was it.
right, it's specifically for those families that don't immediately qualify for school readiness.
Mhm.
But if a third party comes in and pays up to 3 months, they can roll them into school
Okay,
readiness.
so early learning.
Right, so we don't administer,
Okay.
right, we don't administer that.
It's about though, Commissioner, it's the Alice population that Sika's referring to. And it's about 530 kids who get year-round pre-K, right,
Early learning, okay.
of which we pay either 1, 2, or 3 months, depending on sort of the cycle with DOE.
And one other question, this Chair, the funds that allocated for emergency shelter through the city and the county, is that the CHSD process? Is that?
Yes.
So it is a combination of the CHSP process and line item funding that the city of Tallahassee and Leon County did. And so with the breakdown, there are 5 homeless shelters. Our statute says that we are helping children, youth, and families. So of the 5, there are 4 shelters that we would support through that money. Hope Community, which is Family Promise, CCYS, Refuge House, and Breon House.
And you remember, your commission was going, you remember there was going to be the potential transfer. We said y'all would defer for another year, y'all would finalize your process. Subsequently, that is why it is described as it is described. Because we're still maintaining the same. So you remember that all the money went to Kearney because Kearney didn't serve children and we picked up all the kids.
And there's still money that the city and the county are providing. And so I provided this to the budget and finance. Yeah.
Next,
Just, clarification, so the money for the Family Resource Center expansion was budgeted in 23-24, is that right? That's what we're gonna talk about expanding, using the money that we already basically encumbered from last year.
Yes. And that money is sitting. in-
This is only
it's not
for-
account. It's sitting in
New,
the-
sort of new spending and continuation spending. And by the way, sorry, okay.
yes, sir.
I just had a couple of questions, but
Continue.
yeah, okay. with regard to the youth mentoring funding, the extensions under phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah.
Have staff received feedback or results on those investments that we made initially? I don't recall seeing it.
You haven't. So there are 4 programs that were funded. Their data was not due until October 15th. So we haven't had a chance to aggregate that. That is why we asked for the extension to December. And when we come to you in December, we will have the results of that and a recommendation which of those programs we recommend the continued funding through May.
Okay, thank you. And it's again, a little bit of lack of familiarity on my part, but I see the ELC on-ramp continuing funding of $250, but I also see $650 in rebound and recovery that I guess is a program that would be delivered inside an ELC.
So the $250 for the on-ramp is specifically for attendance. So that is just for a child to attend the program.
Okay.
The rebound and recovery would be to infuse that rebound and recovery curriculum into early learning centers.
That FSU,
But-
FSU presented.
But Mr. Johnson, you don't see them as two entirely different things, because just because they are participating, they're a member of the Alice population, right, participating in that 250,000, that is just their monthly payment to the child care center. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will be receiving rebound and recovery as a program that's delivered by FSU. It could, but there are two very different pockets of money.
And just one more point of clarification is when I look on page 52 under early learning, last item stipulates 500,000 as determined by the council. If we were to move these program supports as listed, are we bound by the fact that 500, even though undesignated, would have to go up under early learning, or is there discretion within the council to make that new funds available for some other programming where you have 174, 193?
I'm only smiling because I love it when I get to say this. You have the ability through a budget amendment to move money wherever it is deemed necessary.
And my last point is when we were reviewing the millage rate, one of the comments that I made was that I'd like to see a focused effort on updating our research and statistics, because the research that we've got baked into our strategic plan is based on data probably compiled in 2019. And I don't think that program research and analysis of 56,000 would potentially get us there. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
And I think you make a good point, Mr. Johnson. Here's the good news is that these are rounded up numbers, so that we are being conservative. To Sika's point, at any point along the way, as long as we've not committed the contract with the provider, we can move these dollars. And one thing that I would bring to your attention is the SIPS funding of 300,000. We're about to get a presentation. It's baked into this. I'm reserving my comments on SIPS funding, but that's 300,000. We may not use. That's a potential $300,000. Again, that we would have the flexibility really in any category, but I just use that as an example. Yes, sir.
All right, any other comments?
Coming right after.
All right, is there a motion for acceptance of the the budget as?
I will move it.
All right, second?
I will second, Mr. Chair.
All right. All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any public comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Ms. Liza McFadden, if you can approach the dais, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Liza McFadden, 2617 Marston Road, Tallahassee, Florida. I have to say, when you guys were voting, I kept thinking like, I gotta say yes, no, I was like holding back from having been a former member, but I want to thank you for the work you put into this. I just want to make a couple really quick comments. One is, I mean, and these are in favor of the budget. Under the housing stability supports, where you're moving the conversation with CHSP for those homeless shelters that have families and children. They are used to receiving those funds October 1. So this is a contracting process that probably means they're going to get their funds delayed a month and a half or so from what they usually do. So just the quicker we can get through this process to help them, the better, because they're all trying to float money and more than they've ever floated during this period of time. I know for a fact that a number of them have had to take out lines of credits to get through this. So I just wanted to sort of make that as a statement to that this process is a little different for them as well. And to be aware of those shifts in timeline. The second piece is under the other programming under learning, I had the opportunity to talk to the finance committee. I know Family Promise of the Big Bend would like to be considered for creating something they'd like to call Hope Children in partnership with this organization to really create measures around the children that are homeless in this community and be able to report back on really important issues like enrollment in school, after school work, meal information, stable housing for the children as they exit. I think it'd be very unique. I was unable to find anybody else in the state doing it. Mr. Mitchell, you asked me if there was anyone. To my knowledge, there's not reporting like that on this. So I think we could come up with some really interesting metrics. And then finally, I just wanted to say, moving forward on the homelessness and families, I had made an offer and I'm going to continue to do that and try to come up and share best practices on that moving forward through this partnership, just with the funding that will come through in coordination with CHSP. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
All right. Any final comments from members of the council? We have a motion and a second for acceptance of the budget and the final budget as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes vote. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, please indicate my abstention, please.
Yes, it is duly noted in the minutes. Thank you, Nick. Next, financial audit RFP evaluation team, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On pages 53 through 56 in your agenda material, there's a summary of the RFP Financial Auditing Services Evaluation Panel. In particular, I'd like to draw your attention quickly on page 54, just to remind the council that there was an RFP for auditing services that this council approved on Thursday, July 18th, was published on July 29th. In the intervening period, there were question and answer period held in which 3 firms responded. There was only one vendor that actually submitted a response to the RFP, which is our incumbent. And then on October the 8th, the evaluation panel met to review and the scores that had been compiled on those. And by consensus, we're recommending to retain the incumbent CPA firm for auditing services.
The motion for that?
I will move the recommendation of the committee and thank Mr. Johnson for doing it.
Second. Properly moved and seconded. Is there any public comment?
There's no public comment on this issue.
Thanks. He wants to comment on auditor.
Mr. Johnson, would you be willing to restate your motion?
My motion.
I'm sorry, your motion.
My motion was to accept the recommendation of the committee. And that is the CBA room about Purpose Gray.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, ayes have it. All right, next up. We're on item 8, programming director 3, starting with item A, family resource center.
Yes, so so sorry. Representatives of CHS are here. I believe we also have Senior Vice President Tara Mel on the line on the Zoom as well to provide the implementation report, which we will ask you to accept or not accept, and then their expansion request, which we will ask you to present a motion regarding that as well. So I will turn it over to CA.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Do you want me to check to see if Tara? Oh, no, yes. Oh, there's Jan. Got it.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having us again. We are happy to be in front of you today for our expansion requests.
So I just want clarification. The first item is for consideration is the implementation report and then the expansion request. They're two separate items.
Yeah, they're two separate.
Okay, I just
think
wanted
said
to
that.
clarify.
All right,
All right.
let's have it. Thank y'all for coming back.
Okay, so we started serving on Monday, August 26th. So in 47 days. Oh, in 47 days, I want to talk about what our contract requirements were versus what we've done, and this were to have been done by December 31st, 2024. So community engagement, we had a goal of 150. We have reached out to 236 neighbors. For members, we had a goal of 40, which would be 10 per month from opening, and we are currently at 31. So we were far on track to go ahead and exceed that by December. And then for our parent advisory council, with a goal of 18, we have 20. And that's 9 in the Cross Creek area and 11 in the Fort Braden area. When we were here, last week, we were asked to bring some updated numbers. You should have these numbers larger in your packet so you can see them a little clearer than what's on the screen there. So even just from last week to this week, you can see that as we have been here, the numbers each week are increasing, and we are seeing more and more families come through the Family Resource Center. There's a total of 43 new neighbors since last time we updated this report, and 31 new members. The middle part of this will give you an idea of what resources and referrals they're coming in and asking for. I would just like to kind of highlight that job assistance is at the top, followed by housing resources, and then both ELC, so quality childcare, and after school care are very close together for that last spot there. Right. Okay, one other thing, that does look tiny up there, doesn't it? That we talked about last time you were here is how many MOUs do we currently have that are signed and ready to go? So I wanted to point those out to you. So those are the ones that have stars on your screen, which would be Help Me Grow, CHS Early Steps, CHS Healthy Start, Faith Effects, Healing Hearts Music Therapy, Legal Services in North Florida, SG Mental Health Counseling, and Whole Child Leon. These are also continuing to increase as we go forward. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between the MOU for a vendor versus a provider, and then our warm referrals. So for our MOUs for vendors, so that would be somebody that through this contract will end up getting paid from you guys through us, through CHS, right? So that may look like, at first, we're talking about, say, Healing Hearts, for example. They're coming in and doing music therapy group work.
Well, maybe through that group work, it's identified that there is a family within that needs additional services. So then that allows us, as we're working through their case management, to decide whether or not we can go ahead and give them additional services there. So those relationships are still being explored depending on need of the individual family. Warm referral, you'll see a lot of these check marks, but these are very important because we're not just giving out a phone number and hoping that they connect with someone and crossing our fingers that this is going to go okay. These are agencies that we are actively involved with, talking to, making sure that we're calling ahead. This is who I'm sending you. We're able to do that follow-up and building those relationships with those agencies. So when it comes to provider days and things like that, or if they're having community events, we are working with them closely, and we anticipate that some of these will turn into additional MOUs as we move forward. Also, for all of these that we're working with now, we're creating those relationships so that as the other FRCs open, we're able to get those same providers right into that next spot. Slide.
The handout for this one. Let me have this. We actually have a handout because it's really small up there. But this is, do you have it with us? We didn't get this out, right? Yeah. I can hide. So I have the fun opportunity to talk about what it looks like when a neighbor, a drop-in comes into the Family Resource Center for the first time. So what we're passing out right now in front of you is an example. So Vanessa Williams recently learned of the Family Resource Center located in her community. She's recently moved to the area and needs after-school assistance, dental for her oldest son, and career job assistance. So the Williams family comes in. She's heard about it from the word of mouth, and immediately she is greeted by the intake coordinator. So the intake coordinator is kind of like a membership director in a sense. It's the first person that they see welcoming them as they come in. They sit down with them, talk about what needs they might have, and as soon as they do, they are able to document them, write them down in a referral intake form. So this particular time, Ms. Williams is coming in and she says that she needs food. And that's what brought her to the center on top of her other needs. So they discuss it together and they talk about the two things that her children are experiencing. She's unable to find a job because she doesn't have that safe childcare that they can rely on after school. And she's having some trouble with her 8-year-old. And so parenting classes would be a help too. So together, they write down Ms. Jai. They will explain that Mr. Josh, the navigator, will be in touch with her shortly. And right before she leaves, together they go to the food pantry and get food to stock her cupboard. So Ms. Jai sends Mr. Josh the referral form. Mr. Josh is the navigator. So navigation is like case management, right? So he gets the information, the navigator gets the information and is able to see exactly what Ms. Williams needs to make connections and what services they already have readily available. And so he asked her, would you like all family members to see the dental clinic? And so it's not just about that one-off, it's about encompassing the wellness for the whole family. And then he informs her that Ms. D, the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator, will contact her shortly to connect with after-school assistance, career support, and parenting classes. So you can see from there, it goes to 2 different lines. Ms. D will reach out and signs her children up for after-school services and gets her a parenting schedule. So, and then Mr. Josh and Ms. D together come back to report to Jai. And then Jai continues to follow up afterwards. So it's not like a one-stop shop. It's a continuation of membership and inclusion to come forward to the Family Resource Center. And so sometimes you can hear job descriptions, but then actually to see a flow and see it in action makes a big difference. So we just thought it was really important to kind of give you a snapshot in a day of somebody coming into the Family Resource Center. Next slide. Oh, I do want to say one thing I forgot. It's the one person you do not see on here is the director. The director, it has heavy oversight, of course, through staff in ensuring quality management programs with our standards, community partner relationships, and so much more. The whole oversight of bringing it all together.
I did.
So it's like, oh, I'm sorry.
I think we were distracted by the running out.
This. It's not a surprise. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we are. This is what we've been waiting for, right? To look at some numbers. Unfortunately, Paul Mitchell stood up and left, and I have a poo-poo platter just for Paul. As requested. So I want to talk about Cross Creek. First, I want to say when we look at the initial contract that we had was fully funding the full implementation of the model with both a intake person and a navigator added. Those positions are currently advertised. We have interviewed for those positions and we have people in mind for those positions. But currently, what you see is the red, which is bad. We don't like red, right? So in the middle, we're looking at bringing on those positions, but it would still be cut to services if they only came on as part-time, because right now we had in the contract currently that they would be full-time. We just haven't hired those positions yet, and that's part of that carry forward dollars. We would recommend that you do the full implementation, and that allows us to continue coordinated on-site services, as well as all of these include the contract with Whole Child Beyond. Slide. Kim said I could say this.
Yes, go back. So originally we approved $600,000. I think we had this conversation before, and of that you had only spent 40% of it. I think it was like 300, up to 50% of it. That 435, that's funding this facility from what date to what date?
Sorry, Holly. January 1st. Yeah, January 1st and then through September 30th. So the 9 months.
The 9 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think, go ahead. All right.
So
Tara is here if you have budget questions that we can bring up.
the current staff would be in place through the end of December, and then you would add the additional staff to come on in January, which would then take it to the 4th.
So what we would like to do is continue with the hiring pattern that we've already had contracted and
That 600,000.
yes, go ahead and
Whatever's
get,
left, roll it back into that.
right, and get those onboarded and started right away. One thing that we have talked about in previous meetings is that data collection and getting those into the system. So having that intake person that is able to focus on that will be really important. When you look at that intake person and the navigator person, those are really your meat and potatoes of who's here at the center, greeting people, doing that case management. It is the FACE's role, or the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator, to be out there in the community, attending events, bringing the people in. And so any delay in hiring those additional positions will be a delay and limitation to the capacity of services that we could provide.
So there's a senior director, center director. Is the senior director at each site? There's a senior.
No, there's one senior director
For all the sites.
for all of the sites, and that'll be its own slide in just a second.
Okay, the center director. So basically there would be a center director, an intake coordinator. What positions?
The Family Community Engagement.
How many positions is that?
It's a total of 4 here at the center.
4. And then
No.
later.
So sorry if I can interrupt. There is one family and community engagement coordinator for each community. The original budget included these as half-time positions, And we are recommending that each of them go to full-time positions. I know what we tried to do this time is separate out, because I knew at the workshop there were questions about replication and would we be just doubling the budget request every single time? So we really tried to isolate the expenses for each, and we do have a slide for each community, and then pulling out the costs of the senior director and the data manager as project oversight over the entire project. So those costs don't duplicate with expansion.
Okay, so here, the data manager shared, the senior director shared. At this center would be a center director, an intake coordinator, a family navigator, and 4. Who is people again?
No, just one. The
base position?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so 4 people, basically.
Yes.
Okay, all right, people, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just, in the packet, because Dr. Green had to step out, the detail that's on the slide is in your packet on page 113. If you'd like to see it closer instead of trying to discern on the screen.
What page?
I believe it's 113. It should be right.
Right.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
I think I put a green sticky
Yeah.
in your,
All right, thanks.
thank you.
May I ask one or
Yes,
two
ma'am.
quick qualifying or clarifying questions? So I see what current staffing looks like, got it. I see what moderate expansion you all are suggesting, which would take what we've got now and add a part-time navigator, a part-time intake coordinator. So that's moderate expansion
It would,
for Cross Creek.
if you were just looking at who was hired, but it would be a reduction in what the original contract was, because the original contract did have those at full time.
At full time, okay. Okay, I get that. Now. And I'm sure y'all have talked about this, I still haven't really wrapped my head around it. Between moderate and full, you talk about reduced capacity community services. I don't know what that means. Versus coordinated on-site community services. So help me understand, what services are we providing here as opposed to referring people out and working with community partners out there? What are we providing now?
So we are doing, we have early steps. All of those stars that I talked about earlier are programs that we have here on site. And we are also beginning that case management with families coming in. I think that the big difference is that when you look at just the amount of people and the amount of hours that we want to remain open, being able to get out into the community, do that outreach, but then make sure that the center is manned and that somebody's not completely by themselves. So we at least have 2 staff members. If we don't, then we're going to have to look at what hours we can keep this open versus when we can be out in the community doing that type of engagement. And so that will limit what we'll just be able to have here as far as hours go. That's thanks.
Yes. Can you go back to the slide with the stars, so partners and X, Y, and Z? And
I can
there you go.
attempt to blow it up if you want me.
Okay. Ultimately, right now, to Ms. Marstiller's point, those providers right there, aside from stars or not, you guys at Cross Creek have the ability, if someone comes in here with a need, those are the current partners, established partners that you can refer to right now for someone to get help, right?
Correct.
So, but ultimately that's current status, but you want to expand, right? Because there's 1,000 providers in Leon
Yes.
County, right? You
Absolutely.
want to expand this list and you're articulating that the current staff that you have right now, really like that's what your capacity is with somebody part-time, but as more people come through, you need another person to be able to meet the.
Yeah. So like with the intake coordinator, having that position in particular is working with that person comes in to find out exactly what their needs are to pass on to the navigator to help connect them to services here. Right now, we don't have those 2 positions and we have a family and community engagement coordinator who's kind of acting in all of those pieces. But as we grow and people are hearing about us, it just limited capacity. So we will not, it will stifle going out to create more partnerships because we want to make sure that the people that come into the center have their needs met.
And how many more slides do you have?
We have two right now, the intake coordinator and the navigator.
How many slides? Presentation.
Oh, slides. Oh, sorry.
4.
4? Okay, I'm gonna save my questions to let you get through it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. So when we talked about the workshop, same slide, 4th grade is ready.
Good.
Yeah.
Great news.
So when we looked at Fort Braden and we were trying to figure out how to give Paul his poo-poo platter, we looked at.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we looked at
What you missed.
we looked at a phased approach. Of course, what we would absolutely recommend is that we are able to go in and fully implement this model, get that director hired as of January, get that center open by spring and start providing services there. Of course, as requested, we did look at other options. And so the other two, you have your minimum staffing. This would also delay services until summer and would severely limit the amount of co-located services that we could have. And then the moderate expansion would be bringing on the director, but waiting for the additional pieces. And so you've seen that happen here with Cross Creek, where we've waited for those additional couple of positions, and you've seen what that lag has caused. So I would urge you to go for the full implementation and not kind of repeat the same thing that we did here. So, and they're in, red, yellow, green. And so for Paul, I would say it's poo-poo platter.
That was good.
Okay, slide, please. So as we're looking at Macon and Griffin Heights, we have already started to make strides in these neighborhoods. We have started engaging, collecting community assessments. We have started kind of looking for parents that would be interested in being in these groups. The next thing is to really dig in. And as we outlined in the implementation report, for each area, the Community Readiness for Community Change tool really gave us steps to get that community to readiness. In order to do that and be fully involved and get these next centers going, we are recommending that those 2 face positions move from a part-time to a full-time. This will allow them to dive deeper into their neighborhood and come back to you with a plan sooner on how to get these other areas started.
What's the timeline on that?
So,
we want to come back. We want
January.
We'll come back in January to get updates on those.
No, for those positions. So we are asking to do the full requested staffing so that for January, those positions can be full-time.
So we can come back to you in June.
Yes.
The June board meeting.
Now I apologize. Cross Creek, Fort Braden will be ready to roll starting January, and in January, you'll come back to us for the remaining sites.
So not the remaining sites, we'll be engaging our family and community engagement coordinators in those sites and developing those plans. And then we'll bring those plans back to you as those communities are ready and we feel confident with our recommendation that we should move forward.
He wants to know when are we gonna come back, tell him about the other sites, Macon, Griffin, that's what he's asking.
Jim.
Okay.
June, all right, thank you. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, when you turn to page 114, it has total cost, care forward costs, and then total request. From the total request, does that include converting the part-time positions here to full-time?
Yes.
And I guess I don't know. Did we, as a council, curtail the fact that they should have couldn't have a full-time FTE until the center was up and running. That's pretty much we did that.
Well, not really. It was just delayed because
Okay.
of the delays in getting the implementation done with the build out and
But the funding was there.
Interviewing.
We allocated the money. right?
so that's part of the carryover.
Okay.
So when you're looking at that carryover of 335,
Okay.
that would be part of that carryover. And if you approve that, they would go ahead and get those hired as soon as.
Commissioner, we only allocated money for this center, the one we're sitting.
Right, but I wasn't clear that we didn't allocate enough fund for full-time positions that we dictated.
In this center,
In this center, that we dictated the position would be at time. And I'm
It
sure,
was,
I
it
guess
was
we
a
did.
delay.
It was a
It
delay.
Delay and
Okay.
everything, which is why there's going to be some carry forward at
Right,
the end of the contract.
okay. And then my follow-up question is, with your total request, does that include moving forward with Fort Greene?
Yes,
It does,
yes,
full-time
yes,
FTE,
All the
the two
way,
positions?
yes.
right?
All the way.
All the way.
Flat, flat, flat.
that is just a
Okay.
full on fire.
Including
All the
full-time,
green.
implementing full-time
Yes.
at this center as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you've seen each of the green that we've done, that is our full recommendation, and then that ties into that final budget slide, so we only got 2 more slides. Yep. Okay. There we go. So as Tara mentioned, we really wanted you guys to be able to see what money was going towards what center. So in able to do that, we wanted to pull out this cost. This is the cost of my position and our data manager, in addition to whatever insurance and taxes and all of that kind of stuff, and then our portion of it, indirect. So for this, that as we open more centers, this cost gets spread out between the centers. It is not you will have this cost fully again to open a new center. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And for our last slide, that gives you, our recommendation is to go for full model implementation, both here and at Fort Braden. Increase the Griffin Heights and Macon, positions to full-time. With the carry forward that we're looking at, the total request would be $711,263. And I do want to say that as we went back and looked at our budget, just in case some of you detailed numbers people were there, we did decrease our original ask from last week, $10,774.
I thought that senior director salary was found in Cross Creek and Fort Greene full model implementation.
Each one has a center director. Each center has a center director that's there on site managing the facility. And then there's a senior director over all of the, yes.
Oh. So those, on those other slides, I saw center director, not senior director.
Correct.
All right. All right, I guess, so Mr. Watts.
Mitchell was first and then.
Well, I think Mr. Johnson was first.
Yes. Yeah, he kept going up and down and up and down.
You deferred your time, so.
Somebody go.
All right. Thank you for these last few slides. Those were like really helpful, and information that I definitely wanted to know. And so I've a few questions. This current Cross Creek site, can anyone in Leon County actually get services from here, no matter where they live?
Absolutely.
And so if someone is referred here, they're not in this immediate neighborhood, based on the kind of example you gave, which is great. They could be referred here from somewhere else, and you all currently right now would have the capacity to serve them with that model that you guys, the layout, right?
Yes, I will say, with our current capacity, our ideal is not to turn anyone away, but ideally, as these centers grow, we would like to funnel the community members and neighbors to their neighborhood.
Just for their.
Yeah, for their convenience in that sense, but for right now, we have been giving, information and referrals and things like that.
Let me tell you, we're where your challenge comes. These families that we're serving are oftentimes transient. Right? And so you may be on auntie's couch in Fort Brain this week and at grandma's over in Macon. I think they ought to be treated like library. However you choose to engage or wherever you engage, we provide services for them. And ideally, based upon where, because I mean, this population, this Alice population, they are itinerant.
Right, I just meant that ideally, if somebody is staying in Fort Braden, we would love for them to be able to go to the Fort Braden one instead of having to come all the way over.
Proximity. And that's why one of the things that I've mentioned from the very beginning, that case management is so critically important. Right, and the partners that you described, that you had with you and you presented, I remember we had one Big Ben as a part of our conversation, right? They will also tell you that case management is critically important, such that one, that there's not duplication of services, but that we can really ideally be able to report back to this council what we know has been the impact as we identify all those stars and how they choose to engage and who's providing those services, right? But but I'm sure y'all are sensitive to this transient population and that no matter where somebody lives or how they come engage, because I might be visiting my sister right over there in St. Augustine, and I live in Macon, but she dropped me by here because she heard that we were providing services. So wherever they come,
Absolutely,
right?
as long as they come.
Long as they come.
When they're coming.
Howsoever, whensoever, and whensoever.
Howsoever.
And howsoever. We got 'em. And I think that's critically important because of this population transient nature.
The other thing is, so that's helpful to know about, anyone can, I would, just a few more, spit it out there. I think that sometimes it's very convenient to, assess or assume that I want to start hiring a bunch of people when I'm starting something, right? But in-state government doesn't necessarily work that way. Sometimes you have to be able to actually validate with some type of data or numbers to support a position. And I'm almost thinking that, off the top of my head, I'm thinking a site director. I don't know why you would need a site director at each place starting out of the gate. Would your money be able to go further if you had a site director one that right now is reporting to, a center director reporting to the site director for all three of them until you actually get going? Because I don't know that we're that busy here at Cross Creek, just saying. So you might want to explore considering, do I need to start hiring people right away for sites? I get like you have a data, hey, you need the folks on the ground to do the navigation, like that makes complete sense to me. But the top heavy leadership type roles, you might have some room to spread that before you start getting top heavy. That's just something to put in the back pocket. The other thing that I maybe had questions on or maybe something to consider. So you actually, great job with the slides. You read my mind, maybe. The 144 for the data and your position, right? So, and that includes all insurance and X, Y, and Z. So the site center directors, what does that number look like? Are you at liberty to share like what the center director salary?
Oh, it's in the contract, and we can definitely reference that. It's 65. That position, I just want to also, when there is a certain amount of onboarding, making sure that we are meeting our accreditation standards, that staff are going through all of their training, health and safety. We're also will be going through our COA accreditation. And so that oversight of that director, as well as just being able to physically man the building hour for hour with at least 2 people there, we feel like it's imperative to have that oversight and that leadership there.
I'm going to skip to the Fort Braden discussion and build out, which I think is great when you're able to articulate the agreement, the buy-in, and things that you guys have already established in that arena with the county. That is awesome. I'm looking at the full model implementation, and I'm so glad you put this in here because it's one of my questions, and maybe Anna Kay, I'm putting you on the spot for this. When you talk about the 41906 and full model implementation, if we were to, go with that one, and you have example like furniture costs. So for this build out here, you guys paid for the furniture and build out through the 600,000 that we provided.
Yes.
So if you had a guesstimate financial cost of how much that design and everything, what was that number?
$7,000
$7,000
for the furniture.
for the furniture.
Now the build out,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
that was different.
So with Fort Braden, the county's partnering, they're gonna build that space out, right? So when I see like furniture costs, we will I'm speaking for everybody, but with CHS's historical, everybody references Sable Palm, right? And the community partnership school model and how you're able to get folks to buy in, to donate to X, Y, and Z. I'm thinking about the library expansion of whoever you had that donor redo that whole thing and get a donation. I would just encourage with your skill set that, versus like, hey, do I just need to start buying furniture? Are there partners in the community, if you talk about Fort Braden, that you might be able to actually get to buy in as a partner on that list to actually fund that? Those are things that I would be looking for this model to work and for like comfort to say, hey, yes, this money, the taxpayers' money, they're gonna go really far and not maybe some things that, X, Y, and Z.
I don't think they brought Christian Caban here, Commissioner Caban here for his charming good looks.
No, I appreciate that very much. I think once we can get into the community and really see, because it'd be great for the community to have their own buy-in of the center and what they want it to look like too. And so those community partners that are already out there and really engaging them will be key. So I hear everything you said, and I think that that's very valid, that we should look at some of that.
Superintendent.
All right, so looking more long-term where this train is heading. If we have 4 centers, 4 people per center, that's 16 total employees, 1 senior director, 1 data manager, that's 18 people. And if you do the math, that's about $1.7 million once these 4 are up and running. Do we think there's gonna be additional centers in the community other than these 4?
Right now, we don't.
Not right now, but is long-term, is there gonna be one in South City and one in Woodville and one in, because we're saying we're gonna be obligating of our $9 million, $1.7 million annually is going to support these 4 centers. And these centers, once they're up and running, we will not be able to shut them down. Or you're gonna have a lot of people coming in this room. So if that's fine, then I go back to our funding model again. That 4 million that we last year is gonna run out. And then if we keep funding new programs, at some point, the worlds are gonna collide and something's gonna have to give. So that's why I keep going back to each year earmarking X amount for these different initiatives as opposed to this $4 million, but then we got a new 9 million this year. Well, we do, but that's once all of these things get obligated, at some point, something's got to give.
So, to your point, I think one of the advantages, I believe one of the advantages in having CHS as the managing entity for this is their ability to develop community partners that will truly invest in the centers themselves. So for example, I think to your point, we have lots of businesses in this community that want naming rights. I'm just going to use that as an example. So if you need to outfit a room, and I'm not calling ViStar out, I'm just saying, because that happens to be on my brain. When we have seen other models, which they have seen, there are businesses and corporations that literally come in and outfit and support these types of centers all throughout the state. So one of the advantages of having CHS is their philanthropic infusion in the state. Anything that we fund, and I don't know that we say, anything that we fund with the money that we have, we will not be able to just be that continuous funder. The idea is we are funding it, giving that seed money, building the capacity so that they can go out and find other funding sources as we reduce our investments.
Do they know that?
Yeah, we've had that.
That's why they, that's what they should
That's
be
why they're,
explaining.
well, so I'm saying since he asked me the question. So the thought is, of course, the $4 million is not gonna sustain forever, but it creates that seed. We have that managing entity, and then we go back and look at the budget and how much of that budget needs to be supported by development. At this point, we haven't looked at anything past these four. And I don't think we're in a position to think about anything past these four. What I like to say is, if these four centers get up and running, we've got Sable Palm Community Partnership School that manages that part, and then South City Foundation and Purpose Built, whatever anybody thinks about that. There are now 6 hubs to be able to help our children, youth, and families in this community. And once we get moving with that, then we can look at how do we do something similar in Woodville or in Chairs or in Capitola, but our needs assessment told us where we needed to be. And so that's what we're focusing on at this point.
Got it. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Superintendent, thank you very much for raising that point. There is a reason that I talk about your fiscal conservatism to anyone who will listen. I appreciate the fact that you are thinking long-term. I also appreciate the fact that opportunities for naming opportunities for businesses are out there. But I know that at Sable Palm right now, they're struggling finding those corporate entities that are willing to step forward. There was, to Mr. Watts's point, there was a very generous donor, a couple who left the library. But we can talk about it, but it doesn't mean they will come. So that's the first point. Second point is a little history. We created this center as a way, it's almost a laboratory that we could begin to see how it was working. The idea was not necessarily that this would be permanent, but if it becomes permanent, so be it. Where we knew we were most ready was for Brayton. That's where the community was ready. That's where the cost of standing it up because of the county and the local community's involvement and willingness to, thank you, county commissioners, for putting forward the renovated building. That was the place we knew we needed to start. We needed to test it out here under the supervision of the capable CSC staff, kind of working with Children's Home Society and Whole Child Leon. But this was not meant to be the end all be all. Again, it's turned out it's been a nice site. The kind of getting to the superintendent's point of money running out, it will run out. $4 million seems like a lot when it's in our individual checking accounts. I'll speak for myself. That's a lot of money in my checking account, but it goes very, very quickly. What I would like for folks to consider is we've learned from the laboratory. It's busy. It's not crazy busy, but it's busy, and I think it will continue to get busier. I like the idea of this poo-poo platter of I want full on at Fort Brayton. I really do, because that's what this was supposed to be about. But I like a moderate approach here with the idea that you could come back and say, look, if we just had this other position, it would matter so much more, but I'd like to give this one a little more time. And then finally, leaving current funding in place for Griffin Heights and Macon. And with the idea that, again, we can learn from the part-time positions, but we've got to know what one looks like fully stood up in a community that's ready, in a community that it's supposed to serve. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning, and I appreciate you giving me the time to express that.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, quickly, because I'm ready to land this plane. Yes, sir.
If I had just one clarifying question, I know that in your current contract, there's a requirement to subcontract with full child Leon, I believe, for the behavioral health assessment component. I just wanted to make sure that in your budget request, whatever subcontracting dollars that are included in your budget request, not separately. Okay.
Correct. And I just also, to Paul's point, I want to say CHS as an organization and our team is incredibly committed to this idea and to the model and to show that it is absolutely worth every taxpayer's dollars that is coming through the Children's Service Council to get these services into neighborhoods. At the point now, without having those extra positions, we are at a point here at Cross Creek where we are struggling as far as maintaining the hours and coverage. I would say, I remember many meetings ago, Rocky saying, who's gonna come in and take this job for 9 months? It's only 9 months. And I remember sitting there thinking, maybe I will. But we have created this team who is ready, who is engaging with communities. And I would hate for that work to slow down or get pulled back because there is this excitement behind it right now. So I just encourage all of you guys to really consider, you said CSC wants family resource centers here in Tallahassee. Let us do a full implementation of what family resource centers are.
Oh, what do you know? Because you're gonna make a motion, right?
Now you know my pain in school board meetings.
I was gonna make a motion, but I don't know. But I want to make a comment too.
If I may, because I wanted to offer this, right? When we started this conversation, one of the things that we talked about was how very important it was that the investment that we made at the very beginning in identifying areas of distress, looking at the demographics that it was data driven. I have from the very beginning, because I know I don't want the urgent need found, I didn't want to say blight, but the urgent needs found at Highway 20, right? Because of, as a school board member that serves that community, I can tell you that there's not a great deal of resources. And what excites me about this investment in Fort Brayton is because there aren't a whole lot of businesses, and they are so far outside of the urban service area that your presence there to bring those resources is going to have enormous impact. I am also encouraged by what we have seen the impact at my other school, Sable Palm, through the Community Partnership Program. Once I see this as a burgeoning investment in a community that needs it and a school site that is uniquely created to be K-8 who needs those services well. And so when we have the buy-in from persons like my colleague who shares that same footprint with Commissioner Caban, I'm hoping that this investment will be able to be the springboard for what could possibly be a community partnership location at the Fort Brayton School, but it's going to require time. I have great faith in Children's Home Society because I saw what you did at Sable Palm and what it had been, and that at its apex here just recently was a B school under the right leader who's able to harness all of the resources that y'all identified and then be able to provide what we wanted a family resource center to be, and that was to provide services to meet the whole needs of the family, dental, eyeglasses, and the like. And imagine what that will mean at Fort Brayton. But then what I also think is good about what you've described here is that you're gonna continue to keep your foot on the gas and serve those other areas, looking at successes and failures both at Cross Creek and Fort Bragg, so that you can move slowly and deliberately to work on those schools that are found within the urban service area where those resources are more readily available and they will easily be attained compared to what we know is out in Fort Bragg. So I just wanted to, after your voluminous presentation, tell you that I thought that you're spot on. And that I'm looking forward to supporting what I hope will be my colleagues' motion, that we will move on with the funding recommendation and that we will continue to keep our foot on the gas for those other subsequent centers where I know that there's a great deal for services as well. Mr. Superintendent.
So if I do the math correct, the 600 we already obligated plus the 770 is about 1.4, which leaves 2.6. And that 1.4 gets us to the end of September of next year, right?
Yes.
By the expansion, full expansion of this facility of Fort Bragg and partial in the other two sites. Okay, I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the poo-poo platter. Without the poo-poo. The 770,559 as recommended by the Children's Services Council.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been properly, so, okay.
That's public comment.
Oh,
It's coming.
Sorry.
It's coming.
I know.
okay, go ahead.
And so am I
All
allowed
right,
to ask a
Yes, you're allowed to,
Okay,
you're allowed to ask the question. It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any public comment?
Yes, sir. We have two speakers wishing to speak. Miss Mary Maisha Mitchell, if you'll approach the dais and state your name and address for the record.
Just for the record.
Yeah. And then you'll get 3 minutes after you start.
Good. I'm Maisha Mitchell, most of you know Mary Mitchell from Tallahassee. I live in the Griffin Heights area, 1009 Ellington Court. And I just want to say this has been a very interesting meeting. I'm very excited to see how much progress has been made, particularly with Fort Bragg. I remember 4 years ago, we did the first assessments to see where the need was. And you were talking about the data, 2019 or so. But here we are, you're right on spot with Fort Bragg because that's what the data was, that the need was there. So we thought we were coming up in the rear with Griffin Heights because there was also data showing where we were as well. So I'm happy that we are on the list. I did have one question though about the differences in the financing. I don't know, I saw two partial, that's for us, right?
Yeah.
And just maybe more information about how that works. But I'm very excited to see that you did this progress so far. I did want to make one comment about the partnerships. So we've had 3 groups who've gotten funding from the Children's Service Council. One was last summer with one group who was our partner at Resource Center in Griffin Heights. Because Mr. Maurice over at Raleigh said that many of his students were not coming back to school because of COVID. So there was a grant we pulled together with one of our partners. It's awarded. The target was to get 65 students. We got 91, 92 children to come back to school. But after the money left, we couldn't follow the process. So that's one thing I want you to think about when you have a success. How can we make that happen? Keep it going. Because Raleigh really needed to have it. Those kids still are not coming back if they need to. And there were needs like mental health needs, fear from COVID. Parents just weren't comfortable with sending their kids to school. So we recognize all these things that are needs. And so how do we blend that into our work, particularly for ongoing? Because there's a big need for mental health services and data collection. So we can recognize, in fact, is this beneficial for the community? And in fact, what else do we need to do to make sure these communities are really successful? So when you all are no longer there, these communities can still survive, whether they have dollars from you all or not. So I just want to make sure that you understand how that works in our mind. And we really want to support you in any way possible to keep it going. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. We appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Mr. Matthew Wiley. If you'll approach the dais, state your name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will commence.
Hi, my name is Matthew Wiley. I'm here as a community leader in the Fort Brighton area. I'm currently the president of the Fort Brighton Flag Football Organization. I've lived in the Fort Brighton area my entire life, with the exception of 2 years that I spent in college in Gainesville. Hopefully none of the Seminoles. I've actually also spent my entire adult life as a volunteer coach in the Fort Brighton community, with the exception of a few years I spent as a professional educator. And in my background in education and in my current profession, I know quite a lot about the demographics of the Fort Brighton community. I know that we are historically at one of an all-time high as far as economically disadvantaged families. And as a volunteer and a community leader working with the football organization and Little League and things like that, I also know something else. I know that right now, the community leadership that we have in Fort Brighton is one of the strongest that it's ever been. And I think that the institution of a resource like this, Fort Brighton has never been more ready for it because of the people that we have that work together currently. And a resource like this would be instrumental for those of us who coach football, but also spend some of their time after hours mentoring parents about parental behavior and educational resources. You would be surprised the amount of times I've been called after a football practice to come to a parent of a kid I coach's house to talk to their kids about their behavior in school. Also as a youth pastor at a church for a few years out there, I've done that as well. And I say all that to say, the amount of times I wish I could say, hey, tomorrow, why don't you go to the resource center and get on the computer because I know they don't have internet access. Parents who are looking for career opportunities. I can't begin. I mean, I could spend probably 30 minutes telling you how invaluable something like this would be. And as somebody who's been out there for so long, I know the needs of the kids out there, and it's great right now. School right now, it's a turnaround school for the Department of Education. I know that we have some members in here that know that. And so being able to give parents and kids resources like this would bring is just invaluable. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Go Noles.
There is no more public comment.
All right. We have a recommendation, a motion and a second. Any final comments?
I have a question. I have a question about the motion. When I'm reading the full model implementation, and I think this is what your motion was, of 435,825, and the total for Braden 419,06. In addition to both of those at full budget, you're also recommending that the two really the 4 part-time FTEs. Well, but 2 and 2.
Just
Oh,
do it.
okay, that they go to
But reach, yeah,
full-time.
yes.
Is that, okay, all right.
All right. Any other questions or any other additional information? We have a motion. We have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Marsteller,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Judge Hobbs, Superintendent Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Treasurer Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Watts, Chair Jones,
Yes. Hold on.
Oh, sorry, let me disclose why. I recently rejoined the Sable Palm Community Partnership School Council Children's Home Society, so along with Ms. Major, so I just felt that it'd be good for me to.
Understand. All right, then. Thank you. It passes.
yes, sir.
Thank you. Again, this is going to make an enormous difference for the Fort Brighton community. As we, I'm hoping that, what's your name?
Yeah. Thank you.
Anna Kay. What I'm hoping will also occur over the course of these 9 months, as you continue to assemble data, one of the things that my colleagues have made clear is that there's expectation that the data and the impact that you have will then be used to parlay into additional options for funding, right? Whether it be through state appropriation potentially, right? This is a right time for this, well, communities of impact, but I would hope that you will also identify other sources such that you can continue to be able to sustain beyond our investment.
Thank you. First of all, thank each and every one of you for just demonstrating your commitment to not really just us, but really to the community. Myself and 3 other teammates, we have a external affairs team actually. That entire team, sole responsibility is to make sure that we are in the community talking about the services that we provide, developing relationships so that we can have companies, individuals, organizations to continue to be committed through making a financial investment to the work that we're doing. So this is a huge win for us because now we can say we have a family resource center and we have commitment for another one. So it gives that confidence for donors and businesses to know that this is a worthy investment when we do make those asks. Also on a statewide level, and Tara may be able to speak to this, but through Children's Home Society from a global perspective, we're looking to expand family resource centers across the state. So the work that we're doing here in Tallahassee is going to position us again for those relationships and to make those asks either on a state or a federal level.
Thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge County Commissioner Caban, who also represents the Fort Brayton area. Would you like to provide any final comments before we move to our next item?
Sure, I would love to. Name and address for the record, please. My name's Chris.
3 minutes starts now. I'm just kidding.
I'm the county commissioner that represents Southwest Leon County. Listen, I was only gonna come up here if I heard one person say that we're against it. But, no, in all seriousness, genuine thank you to everyone, the Fort Brayton community. This is very, very important to them. I was just reviewing some of the data points from the Children's Home Society and the survey that they took. And the fact that there's roughly 40% of families out there don't have a second vehicle. What this does, and what I believe this is gonna do, is bring services to the people. And a lot of times, in the county and the city and the school board, when we provide these services, a lot of these services are oftentimes in places and folks don't have proper access to them. And so I think that this is going to be very, very impactful. And I just texting my aide, like we need to run up a thank you letter because this is awesome. And a sincere thank you to everyone.
As an aside, I'd like to also add, Commissioner Caban does a fantastic job of supporting our schools that found in his district, Woodville, also K through 8, Fort Brayton, and St. Paul. He has made intentional investments in our children, and I want to thank him for what he did with this community bazaar that he had just recently to make certain that our children were prepared for the beginning of the school year, again, in an area that is oftentimes underserved. So I want to thank him for his commitment to the Fort Brayton community and to our Leon County Public Schools found in District 3. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a great school board member and a great superintendent and a great commissioner at large as well. So thank you.
So I do have one question. Are we good on the facility with the county? Have y'all had that discussion yet, or is that next on the list?
So there is, I believe we have roughly $1.5 million renovation going on at the Fort Brayton Community Center. I believe the timeline of construction is supposed to start in January 2025. It's all nothing that should impact from my conversations with the county administrator. It's all cosmetic, new carpets, painting. There's some exterior work that needs to be done.
I mean, as far as this operation running out of your facility, we're good with that. It's good. Y'all are good with that, right? It's a done deal.
Yeah, from my understanding.
All right.
Hey, Commissioner, one big shout out, but you mentioned texting your aide to give her more work. Allie she was fantastic in terms of helping the Children's Home Society and the CSC in finding human resources out there so that we could make the determination that not only was there a need, but that community is more ready than any other community. So a big shout out to.
Yeah, she's the best. Thank you.
She is remarkable.
The best. Yeah.
All right,
Thank you all again.
And I'd also thank, Tara, thank you so much for coming on. And Children's Home Society, I want you to know you made a very good choice in partnering with Mrs. Mitchell. I think it matters when it provides a certain level of authenticity when you reach out. People who are already widely known in the community. When you come in, oftentimes without those connections, it's a harder lift. So already I realize that you're making a great choice. I'm sure you're doing the same thing in fourth grade. And clearly you're doing that in Griffin Heights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
A younger.
You won it. Aisha Mitchell.
Yeah.
All right, quick presentation on summer. Yeah.
So we will do a presentation on summer enrichment, which we told you we would do. And for that, our good colleague, Cassandra McLeod, is our, I never get it right, accountability program accountability and contract administrator. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm gonna still get a slogan of we do good. I feel like that's the theme of what we're gonna be talking about today. Happy to be here, happy to share great things to report. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna start off talking about spending and services. We have spent $1.4 million across 11 different agencies. If you look, I gave you guys a dashboard style presentation of the data. If you look at the bar graph with the green bars above them, you're going to see the totals of enrollment per agency. But again, the 1.4 million were distributed across these 11 different agencies. I'll give you the actual numbers for each one. You may know this already, so sorry in advance if it's redundant for you, but Boys and Girls Club we gave them 78,000 and they enrolled 111 participants for Brownsville. We did 200,000 and they enrolled 100. We did 109,000 for Citizens for a Sustainable Future and they enrolled 54. For Creative Mind Solutions, we gave them 149,000. They enrolled 79. Diamonds in the Rough, they got 126K and then they enrolled 73. Franklin Academy, 169K, and they enrolled 107. Institute for Music Business, they got 28K, and they enrolled 15,000. Reach One Youth Organization, they enrolled 65,000.
15.
I'm sorry. Reach One, yeah, so 15 were enrolled for Institute for Music Business with 28K. Reach One, 136,000, and they enrolled 65. Tallahassee Nights Live, we gave them 90K. They enrolled 45, the Foundation for Leon County Schools, they got 235K and they enrolled 222. And then lastly, Omega Lamplighters, 113K with 57 enrolled. So across all of those agencies, we enrolled 929 students with 903 attending, which is 97%. And these services were provided across 777 households. Now the services totaled 82,000 services for points of service. That's split between attendance and meals. For attendance, we had 26,000. And then for meals, we had roughly 56,000. 23,000 went towards breakfast, 24 towards lunch, and 7,000 roughly towards dinner and snacks. And next slide. Okay, and so we had contracted with these agencies to enroll 906 participants. They actually enrolled 929. So that was a great thing, was 14% above what we had targeted. 9 out of the 11 providers that serviced our youth this summer, they met or exceeded their contracted target numbers for participants to be enrolled. And out of them, we had 3 that exceeded their goals by over 20%. That includes the Foundation for Leon County Schools, who met their target by 159%. They enrolled 222 instead of their 140 as targeted. For Tallahassee Nights Live, they met their enrollment target by 129%, which was 45 enrollees versus 35. And then lastly, we had Creative Mind Solutions, who met their target with 120%. they enrolled 79 students instead of their targeted 66. Now, we will say that we had the goal of having 70% of our participants attend at least 80% of service days. At the end of the summer, we had 52.5% of participants attend at least 80% of the service days during the summer. We do think that that was impacted by attrition that occurs towards the end of the summer. The last 2 weeks, I'm sure you guys already know this, people tend to fall off, people are in that R&R mode, the families and the participants. So that's kind of expected, but that 52.5% was impacted by attrition towards the end of the summer. And next slide. Okay, so now who do we serve? We're gonna look at some demographic data. So we had a priority service area, which included 5 different zip codes, that being 32301, you see it in the upper left-hand corner, 32301, 32303, 32304, 05, and 32310. We looked for 60% of all of our services to be provided within this priority service area. As it turns out, you can tell by other, 22% of our services were provided outside of our target area, which means that 78% of our services did go to the priority service area, which was ideal. When it comes to household income, we were able to get 68.2% of the data from our participants. When it comes to household income, you can kind of tell by the slide that it's not very evenly distributed. So you have the lower incomes reporting less of their income. I'll say that differently. It's bottom heavy. So for the $0 to $30,000 range, we only have 159 respondents that identify their income as being low income. Now, I say that noting that it's often the case, and I'm speaking from my research experience, that when you have lower income, if you have anything that's a sensitive, personal piece of information, you're sometimes hesitant to report it, because we had almost 300 individuals, 300 students that we did not collect information on their household income for. There's a not high probability, it's possible. I wouldn't take it to the bank, I'm speculating, but it's possible that among that 300 people, the 295 to be exact, number of participants who didn't get information for on their income, that they may actually be low income participants, and that's why they were hesitant to report that information. So I submit that to you, and looking at this, it may seem like we are providing services to more individuals who are 30K and up annually, but that may not really be the case. We didn't collect roughly 300 counts of data to feature into this data point.
Well, that's very true.
Yeah.
I can tell you, as having grown up as a Title I student, I didn't know I was poor until white people told me. Right? Because I thought I was rich because I had 3 meals, I had loving family, but I qualified, back then you used to get a little lunch ticket. Right? I got a lunch ticket. I thought that, and everybody at my school got a lunch ticket. But we didn't self-identify that way, because particularly if they are gainfully employed. But it's not until you do the analysis of it all that you then realize that you are working class poor, but poor nonetheless, right? Yeah. And living below the AMI, right, which are terms that are not bandied about in a family, but only self-described when you have to access resources. And so subsequently, I understand that narrative. It is a narrative which we're sensitive to, particularly in the schools, because we don't want then that to be some arbitrary designation that subsequently somehow informs families to feel less than. Right. That's why we have to be careful in the way we provide services and the way we document with pictures and photos and stories, because working class poor people, although they may need those services, enjoy the same dignity as anyone else.
Absolutely.
By virtue of their humanity.
Absolutely. And I'm sensitive to participants being hesitant to give information sometimes. You know that. We see that when it comes to consent for us to be able to access information from DCF and DOE and other things like that. So it comes along with it's the nature of the business. But I will say that we are shifting towards participants being required to complete this as a feature of their application. So it won't be optional for future years, or for this year it was optional. And among those who volunteered to give us this information, I think it's great that we got 634 to respond. But it is important that we collect the information so we can better understand who these dollars are going towards.
And there are other, and even without that self-designation, by virtue of the necess, what they require. They require food, they require clothing, whatever wherever they come into the system, and that's where case management matters. Because case managers can make those types of determinations based upon what's requested, the services that are required. They need food assistance, so forth and so on. So I hope that self-designation does inform our data that is necessary that we use to populate what we'll describe as moving the needle.
Gotcha, indeed. And agreed. Okay, when it comes to race and ethnicity, PowerPoint played a trick on us. These zeros are mixed in with ones and other things like that, so I just want to give you the data in general. Wherever you see a zero, it actually represents a value that is less than one. So it's kind of like a less than one sign is what should really be up there. But either which way, we have American Indian or Alaskan at 0.6%. We had 6 participants that were of that race. For the race of Asian, we had 5 that were Asian, and they came in at 0.5%. For biracial or multiracial, we had 49, and they came in at 5.3%. For Black or African American, we had 818. They came in at 88.5%. And then for Pacific Islanders, we had 1. I'm happy about that 1. And they came in at 0.1%. And then lastly, for white, we had 44, and that totaled 4.8%. So we had a good distribution with the diversity of that. You see for gender, we're kind of like half and half, 52 for male, 48% for females. So that's kind of good. We were helping both genders. And then for grades, we have predominantly elementary. We have 74%, 21% middle, and then 5% high. That 0%, which is other, is again another less than 1. And there was 1 individual who was other, and they were not in school. Next slide. Okay, so for CYRM completion, this was the assessment that we had all of our agencies complete across the board. This is a study on an assessment on resiliency. Of those that were attended, we had 98% of them complete the pre. And for those that completed the CYRM post, the total was 88%. Those are both beyond our goals. We look for 95% CYRM pre, 80% for the CYRM post. Now, we also have the target of 80% of our participants who completed the pre and post for the CYRM to have at least 1 gain and 1 subscale of the assessment. We came very close to it. We had 72% of our participants have 1 gain for CYRM. I will again say that the more that we have participants that are attending with regularity and through the tail end of the summer, again, these post assessments are going to be administered towards the end of the summer. It's after program services have been implemented, and we're catching things to see where we're testing the participants, assessing the participants to see how effective the services were. But if the participants don't happen to show up for the last 2 weeks, that impacts our data collection. And so with us being able to get to the point of us having 95% plus, we may shift these totals, but we're closer towards our 80% goal. So we have to consider the distribution of testing into these figures.
Welcome to our work. The superintendent will tell you that is our challenge.
Yeah. Indeed. Okay, so here's where I feel like, yeah, we did good. I should be able to just shout that out, drop the mic, and walk out the room. But of course I can't. I have another slide, so that's not really going to happen. But we had 95.8% of our parents report being satisfied or very satisfied with the services they received over the summer for our OSC, which is a great thing. So our target was 75% for our parents to complete the satisfaction survey. We didn't hit that target. We were at 57.2%. But all the same, to have that strong of response for satisfied and very satisfied is volume about the quality of work that our providers offer. It truly does. We also have our special needs and our success story comments that we collected. So I'm not going to read them all. There's a lot of words here. I really only have 3 minutes. I try to get to it even with speed talking. I'm sure I'm past 3 minutes. But okay. But one of our summer special needs parents, I'll give this quote to you. She said, "We are truly grateful for this opportunity." They said, "We are truly grateful for this opportunity and hope that this scholarship will continue to be available next summer, as it has made a meaningful difference in our lives." I think that this, I'm beyond confident that this would be reiterated and seconded by all of our providers that provided services for our summer during the summer. Then we have a couple success stories. In the case of Brownsville Preparatory Institute, we had a student who was rather shy and reserved. They were homeschooled. They didn't have much interaction in school settings, and they came out of their shell. They found some confidence. They found a great ability to be able to engage socially, which is a critical skill for youth development. And so I feel like that was really something that we wanted to share with you guys. And then we also have a success story for Diamonds in the Rough, where there was a student who wasn't very clear on what their future was going to look like. They didn't even have a set path for themselves. And through their participating in a college tour, they were able to identify passion. They found out that they liked IT. They decided that's what they wanted to pursue. And thankfully, Diamonds in the Rough, they had mentors and other supports that they could provide that student in order to help them solidify that as their path and start taking immediate action to grow and develop in that space. And so that's the kind of impact that we look to have, that we look for our partners to have, our providers to have. And I feel like this is definitely a success story through and through for me. Next slide. But of course, there's lessons learned. And so with these lessons being learned, these were the 4 themes that I found through all the feedback we got from our providers in their final reports. These cover the areas of staff management, survey administration, small group tutoring, and student needs. So task delegation became pretty important, particularly when there was staff shortages or turnover. But of course, when we're talking about staff delegation, we also have to talk about professional development, because the staff who are receiving these tasks, they have to have the capacity to perform the tasks. That takes training, that takes different kinds of experiential lessons. Having someone walk them through how to do task X, Y, and Z. And so that professional development became pretty important. There's no surprise there. When it comes to survey administration, I've kind of already mentioned this before, but those last 2 weeks of our services they're just critical. They're critical for parents being able to complete the surveys. And they're also critical for the students being able to complete their post assessments. So attrition did impact those things, and our partners are looking for ways to be able to have some improvements towards some shifts, some twists to the last couple of weeks of services, where those weeks are just kind of like, making them an offer they can't refuse. They're that exciting, they're that enticing. And so we're looking forward to them making strategic shifts, strategic additions to how they function for the last 2 weeks in order to retain those youth to prevent that attrition. And we're going to be CSC Leon's going to be here to support them with that as well. And then for small group tutoring, again, no surprise there. When it came to academic instruction and specific enrichment activities, they found that divide and conquer, breaking the larger groups down to smaller ones, they were able to maintain their attention and better able to provide that academic support. And then lastly, when it came to student needs, there were 2 that were thematic, and that include parent involvement. The providers would like to have more parents being involved in things, thinking through different ways to be able to do that, parent events and other things like that to kind of pull them in and have them more incorporated throughout the summer. And then also stress management education. You'll see as you go to the other slides that break down data on the individual agencies' outcomes. I don't think we're going to go through those today, but you'll see that there was one partner who was Tallahassee, my slide, that actually provided stress management support and education as part of youth development. But outside of them, the other agencies identified that as being a need and an interest for stress management to be incorporated into the youth development services that they were providing. So that's kind of how we did all the way across the board, all of our 11 agencies. There are a few more slides, 11 more slides. And we're not going to go through it. No, I don't have the time. I can't talk that fast. No matter how fast I can talk, not that fast. But when you have the time, please go through them. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we know that data was important to you guys. And so we wanted to be able to get you some information that reflected how impactful the providers were with the services that they delivered. And so I hope that is satisfactory for you. And of course, we're always looking to grow. And so this is what we have for this year. Next year, there'll be more. But yeah, it's We
Thank
do
you.
good, we do good.
Thank
It's
you.
on their slogan.
And let me
Thank you.
just say, I neglected to introduce Cassandra as Dr. Let me say that because that's why you got some of this, not why you got a thorough analysis, but some of her experience that she brought to the table.
So if I may start, I want to thank you for your presentation. This is what we in the community have asked for, to be able to break it down the way that you have, particularly across the agencies and the impacts, and then to know that we're testing the kids to see that those learning gains or those measurable gains have been achieved, thereby being able to provide us with the metrics for what we would see as a return on investment. I'm hoping that I apologize if I'm unaware if we have marketing staff still on the team, but I'm hoping that we will find a way to amplify this to our public. One of the things that we have continued to talk about is being stewards of these public dollars. And I think being able to report that investment on this most recent summer investment, I think will be critical for our agency moving forward. And we look forward to future reports similarly designed to provide that same level of information and detail. So thank you for sharing this. We can never spend enough time on and analyzing the return on investment. So thank you very much. And to Ms. Green and to the entire staff, thank you for what has been your influence and impact on what we have seen in this report. Yes, Mr. Johnson?
Just real quickly, and I don't want to take it up tonight, but I know when you went through the enrollment and attendance, you mentioned the contract price and the number of enrollees that were contracted versus actual. So I was just hoping to capture some information on cost per participant. It seemed like there was a lot of variability in cost per participant across the different providers, and then correlating that if you had a higher cost per participant, if the outcomes that you saw in those programs justified the higher cost per participant, just to help look at providers in the future.
Yes, indeed. So we can get that information to you. The cost naturally did
I won't read
vary.
it tonight.
Okay, no worries, no worries. But the cost would vary from one program to the next because it provides different kinds of services.
Understood.
So a sports program versus a dance program versus a literacy program, you know, the cost would be different. And also there were some that were leasing a space versus already having you know, that overhead cost for occupancy being incorporated into these. So it varies. The budgets were built based on what the needs were and the nature of the services. So there was some variability there, but that is a good question and I can get you that information.
Let me also add that this does not, the funding that Dr. McLaughlin provided for the attendees does not contemplate money that has to be returned. So some of them will need to return money because they didn't use all of it to serve the clients. We did have one that never got the second disbursement because the first reporting. So there are some variables in there that will augment.
Yes, Mr.
That's what I was gonna ask, the Boys and Girls Club, it looks like they only had 50% of the kids enrolled that we contracted.
Yeah,
So they never got the second disbursement.
They never got the second.
Okay, that makes, all right, perfect, I understand now. You know, each one of these programs was different lengths of time. Some could have been 2 weeks, some 6 weeks,
They
so
were all at least 6 weeks.
at least 6
The
weeks.
minimum requirement.
So if you took the 1.4 whatever million divided by 902, it's about between $1,500 and $1,600 per student.
And what we said was $300 per student per week. So that's all right.
And this is the document that you'll be getting that shows exactly what was dispersed, what they were contracted, who they served, those durations, all the bits that she shared.
All right.
All the bits.
Yeah.
I am curious. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you
Is this just a report to be heard? Is there an ask?
No,
This
there's
is
no
just
ask.
Information.
The ask is in the very next thing, which is where we're talking about out of school time and youth.
Okay.
One of the questions that I heard Mr. Mitchell asked earlier was about continuity. For those that, now that we have this analysis of programs, will the success of already funded program from previous summer, will they be given different consideration compared to those who may be first time asked?
Absolutely. So that's the very next part of our agenda.
Oh.
Is the youth development and out of school time where
I was psychic.
you are.
All right, thank you.
Right
Thank
in
you
sync,
so-
you're right in sync.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next up. We've got youth development out of school time, 2025-26 investments.
Yes, now, if you remember on this, we did a workshop on this last Thursday, so we took your suggestions and comments into consideration and made those changes in the document you have in front of you. And so what we are asking is that you do a quick review and hopefully accept this so that we can move forward with,
We've already had a workshop on it.
yes,
Is there a
last
motion for acceptance?
Wait, where is
That workshop last week.
Where is it?
Page
It's on page 129. On the
Right after the PowerPoint from Dr.
the workshop last Thursday, we discussed this particular RFP.
Okay, so the, Mr. Chair.
Your turn.
Okay, so I definitely remember the workshop. I was there. What I took from that workshop, and I think is your recommendation, is to instead of worrying so much about a summer program, we're gonna do a year-round program that incorporates the summer. Which I am very supportive of. We talked about, there are some kids, however, that we do not want to lose, that need summer-only programs, and so we were going to put aside, and we were talking about different percentages of either 70-30 or 80-20. I was more of the no reason to think this, but I was more of an 80-20 guy. So that would leave 20% of these funds that are available for summer-only programs for kids who are receiving services in the other part of the year.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what we're voting on. We're not voting on programs.
No.
Oh, she's like, okay.
We're voting, we're asking you to approve this as the RFP proposal, the
Yes.
concept. And we did change it to 80-20, which was the preponderance of the thought.
Right.
So that 80% would be for year round, starting in the summer, year round.
Right.
And 20% would be for summer only for those children that have the out of school handled in other ways.
Right.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, I will make your motion for you.
Any others? Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. We got a motion and a second. Yes, Mr.
And
Superintendent.
just so I'm clear, is it 1.4 again for the year, for the 12 months?
It is, so in the budget you approved earlier today, under youth development, we are looking at 3.2, because remember, this is a summer that goes into out of school. So for the 12 months, it would be 3.2.
And that includes infusing summer for those special kids and not part of the year round.
So special needs would be 250, that's just for the summer, 250,000. The 3.2, so it's 3,240,000 would be for year round at 80% and summer only at 20%. The cost for a summer only program per child is about the same as the cost for that child to be in aftercare, out of school time, for an academic year. So that is why this amount is doubled, because you're doing summer as well as after school. And as we have said before, in order for us to follow the children, we need to be able to stay with them consistently and not keep bringing in a different cohort of children every summer. Whereas this way, we have programs that are gonna start in the summer and we're gonna be able to follow those kids and their progression all the way through. Additionally, in this recommendation, children that participate in these out of school time programs must opt in, their parents must opt in for us to get their academic information through report cards, their progress information through progress monitoring. And literally, it becomes a built-in case management that we are following them this entire year.
So, you know, I'm sort of, I struggled with hearing that we had drop off in the last 2 weeks of the summer because people are moving on. Well, I'm like, well, then how about we stop the program 2 weeks before the end of the summer? If it's that dramatic of a fall off. When it comes to this, though, these are, I mean, this is a pretty remarkable thing that we are offering families for their kids and offering it on a year-round basis. In addition to an obligation that they show a report card, I also think there should be an obligation that they show up. This idea of not showing up for the last 2 weeks, I can't tell you how frustrating that is to me. Like,
Because you're not Alice.
not because I'm not Alice, I'm a parent just like any other parent.
But these people that we're serving, you don't know what, there's a reason why that behavior will occur.
In the last 2 weeks of the summer?
So may I
Yeah.
share? So not only do we have just drop off, because we contemplated this as a team, what is it that could be added to this? As the superintendent and school board member will tell you, when it rains, school attendance goes down. When it rains, summer program. So if you've got a 2-week period where it is raining every morning, the kids won't show up. The other thing we want to contemplate is we mandated that these programs be free of charge to the parents, which is wonderful. But what we know from the programs is if there's no skin in the game, $50, $25, whatever it might be, it is easier to say, I'm not going to work today, so you're not going to camp today. So there are a few things we think contributed to that, number one. Number two, the 70% was arbitrary. There is no number out there that says if they attend this percent of the time, it's gonna be better. What it says is consistent attendance for a duration gives you the gains in the students. So we think there are a couple of things that feed into that. Not just, we're not going the last 2 weeks. If that was helpful.
Yes.
I just wanted to.
I'm sorry, Ms. Marsuda.
Thank you. Just 2 quick questions. On page 131, proposed scoring criteria and weights. The item entitled proposed budget, we're asking to see a cost-effective budget that does not exceed $2,400 per unduplicated youth served during the school year and $2,400 per unduplicated youth served during the summer.
Yes, because after school is only 3 hours. And
Yeah.
what our research shows is that for after school, for the academic year, it costs about the same to have a student in summer for 7 or 8 hours a day for the duration of the summer. And this summer coming up is
But
only
didn't
2
we just
months.
determine that our summer programs that we just heard a report on average $1,500 and say $1,600 per attendee for 6 weeks?
It's an average, but some of those were 10 weeks long, some of them were 6 weeks long, some of them were 9 weeks long.
Yeah.
And what we allocated when they did their application was they had to contemplate $300 per child per week.
Per week.
Right, so if you had a 10-week program, that's $300 that's what, $3,000.
Okay, that seems interesting. We are gonna get to see the RFP before it goes out, yeah.
Correct. That was the only point I was gonna make, is that while that's been allocated in the budget, this was just releasing the RFP. You could review the responses and end up only funding 1.5.
Well, I guess my question is,
This is our CP.
are we going to see the actual RFP before it is released? Or is this the concept paper and that's what we get?
So previously, this council decided that they only needed to see the statement of work or the concept because our RFP templates were all the same. We didn't change anything with the template, so that's what we were following here. If there's an appetite to do something different, then we can do that.
And what are the performance measures? Are those gonna be in here as in the RFP as well? Are they here?
That was in the statement of work that was provided in your previous binder. That was at the workshop.
Okay.
So we did not reprint the statement of work. But if you flip back to the workshop materials, it's under data collection and
Hold
assessment.
on, I'm gonna give the page numbers. Under the workshop materials, so if you go to your workshop materials, the statement of work is attachment 1. Page 1, and it goes into the program design, the staffing plan, the data collection and assessment tools. The performance indicators are all there. I don't have a problem reading them. If you need.
No.
Okay.
I have found it.
Okay.
I just wanna, make sure that we're all comfortable that that the performance measures that we have are exactly what we need. In light of, I think, the superintendent's very understandable concern about how much money we're getting ready to spend on all this.
What I will tell you, this will be the fourth summer, so 22, 23, 24. And we have really, I believe, gotten more robust in what we have wanted. The first summer, it was literally put kids in slots.
Yep.
The second summer, we added more stringency. Last summer was the most stringent we had done, and as a result, the number of programs that we funded went down. This coming request that we're asking is very stringent and is totally in line with the standards for after school and out of time programs, with the performance measures that should be achieved if that program is doing what it should be doing and the outcomes that it should be.
I am interested, for these summer programs to review, don't we get, community-based,
We do,
reviewers?
we do.
To include person from the district and
Yes.
so forth. Yeah. Cause my concerns about this year-long service compared to summer is whether or not there is a duplication of already existing programs that may very well already be meeting those needs, because I thought the whole notion for summer was that because it was not school-based learning occurring at that time, we wanted to make sure that we were providing services in that space. I'm interested in seeing what kind of firms we get, what types of responses, what kind of programming they will do that will go year round, and I'm also interested in the persons who will be providing that review.
Well, we will be sure, and we always do, provide the people who we are proposing to be the evaluators for the RFPs. Additionally, if you have people that you believe would be good, all you have to do is send them to me and we will put that information out. What I will also tell you is that what our listening sessions, our data shows, is that parents are still in need of out of school time and after school programs.
And I agree with you. I agree with 100%.
But I understand what you're saying.
And I appreciate what we have seen today. That was very, very good to see. My only concern when we go into year-round services, and I wouldn't dare speak for the superintendent, but one of the tech problems that he tackled with early learning, that there were a whole lot of early learning centers who were just babysitting children. And so that we could move the needle with our earliest learners, he then went armed with a curriculum and standards that were taught to ensure that no matter where a child came from, whether they were at Oak Ridge's pre-K or if they were at mud pies and marbles pre-K. That no matter where they were served, that they were being taught to certain standards. Right? And so when we get into after-school programs, I just want us to make sure that the standard remains high. That when they move beyond these specialized programs for the summer, where they're providing potentially all day, now if they're gonna now get into the domain of after-school programs, that's how sometimes you may get into mission creep. And that's what I want to make sure that we just holding a real high standard. And you've done that with our RFPs and our scoring and having community-based persons who bring expertise. You go to the academy, you go to the district. I just want to make sure that we maintain that same level of scrutiny to ensure that the quality is not diminished when they now go into this year-round space along with the summer with already existing programs.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm being honest with you, I'm getting fatigued. If y'all are or not, but I'm. Well, cause you've had a lot of sugar.
I understand.
So the 80-20, you said 20% in the summer, is that we were?
Summer only.
20% would be
And
summer.
last year we spent 1.4 million in the summer, and this year we're only gonna spend 640 and 650 in the summer, right? That's what we're saying?
Thereabout.
Summer only,
And is
so
it
summer
the average would be year round.
Right, then we were, okay, I see. Or year round.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, of course.
So I have zero problem with the scope of work and us approving the scope of work and you all doing the RFP. I would say to you, especially with the dollar amount, very much like the LLC, I think it would be really great if there was one member of the council who would be part of the evaluation. I think that's really important. The other thing is, and this is no offense to any of the community members who have participated in past summer program evaluation. If we're really serious about collecting data and following students and determining whether or not we're moving a needle, I would like a very well vetted evaluation team. Again, I would hope that there would be a member of the council. As the guy who sat on the FRC, I got a lot out of it. And I think I could explain to the council as we went along the process, sort of what was happening in those meetings. So I hope there's somebody on the council be willing to do it. Okay, my questions. I mentioned in the workshop some sort of a financial looking into their finances. So let's say someone owes us $60,000 and we don't, and we're gonna sue them. I'd like to know they have $60,000 in their checking account. Like, we're not just chasing someone. So there was going to be some consideration given to a financial evaluation. Is that in here?
It will be in the RFP.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, that answers that.
Yes.
Next question, I want to go as fast as I can. There is a criteria about no religious requirement. But that doesn't mean that a faith-based organization can't offer,
Exactly.
correct? You just can't make someone say
Can't be
a prayer.
mandatory as a part of your program.
Okay, all right, I'm good with that. And then last, the 20% that is going to be summer only. We are essentially saying we're going to collect the data. We're not really collecting are we going to collect a report card on those? Because how are we following them? It's just and what kind of, God bless you, Ms. Mitchell. That's a name I can remember. How are those programs going to be less, I don't want to say scholastic driven, but are they going to be more, sort of fun time with a learning component to it? I mean, what are we anticipating from that 20%? God bless you.
So, bless you. So the anticipation is very similar to what we had this summer. So there would still be some requirements for pre and post, and data collection, attendance, what your enrichment component is. When you tell us what that is, then we are gonna prescribe the tool that you use to do the measurements. So we'll still have that stringency very similar to this past summer. That being said, though, we won't ask for report cards, we won't ask for progress monitoring, because of course, these children are just in the summer only piece.
And then my last question is, I understand this correctly, from a budget standpoint, we are still dedicating now for the second time a summer program for children and their families with special needs.
Yes, so that is a separate piece.
I just want to make sure we're keeping that in the
Yes, sir.
budget. Very good.
And right now, it's the same amount that we proposed last year, but the methodology on how that funding is accessed is going to be different.
And just one final comment on that. I want to make sure that it seemed like last year that families in the special need community, not all families in the special need community had ever even heard of this. And it was our first year, so okay. I really want to make sure that we get that message out to everybody in this county who has a child with special needs.
Absolutely. So we know now the associations, and with this one, it's a little different. Last year, we funded scholarships and the money went to the entity, right? This year, what we're proposing is we're funding scholarships, but the mechanism is that the parents of the special needs children will apply for the scholarship and tell us where they want their child to go. Once the attendance has been verified, then we will provide the money.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
And if I may also add, I think we ought to consider entering to, I don't know, if an MOU or if it requires something formal or informal. The school district is a fantastic resource for marketing our services, persons who are made these awards. Superintendent has made an intentional investment in amping up our communications department so that we can talk about services that are also provided at our school sites. But for example, like what you described, those persons can be targeted. Those families that are already being served by the district can be targeted if we have that type of relationship such that when these services are being, they can occur. Yes, Mrs. Cummings, I'm sorry, I did not see you.
But that's okay, Mr. Chair, just real brief. When we had our workshop last week, in light of the fact that we do have an entity that owes funds, I just suggested that we have the general counsel look at whether or not we could legally require the entities that we contract with to write a bond, have a bond. Are we able to do that, or is that something we can request that?
Yeah, so
he did.
Right, so Fred. No, neither one was here. We've made that ask, but it will be a part of the RFP. Additionally, I think for financials, we didn't make that
No,
ask.
we did make the ask and Fred weighed in and
Oh,
said
okay, I missed.
it's not suggest that for services because it's a different type of service and
Because
he was gonna write something up to provide. Did he give it to you?
He didn't say that it was not because a performance bond.
No, he had a whole, I do not wanna parse words because I'm not an attorney, but he did weigh in on it.
It's not a good idea, basically, is what he said. Okay.
He suggested some other alternatives to get to where you wanted to get to make sure that they are
So
financially
that'll be
solvent.
provided to us in writing.
Yeah, but that, we'll get it.
Yes.
All right, and
So he said that after the meeting, because he didn't.
No, that was Mr. Springer after
Gotcha.
the request was.
Just
Gotcha.
very briefly, one other question. In our workshop and under the statement of work, we looked at the needs assessment that had been done. We looked at third grade meeting, and we looked at percentages that were projected in as a baseline. So I guess my question is, will the RFP specifically request the service providers provide services for these groups, third grade, eighth? Okay, great, awesome. Thank you.
I am interested in financials on for our respondents. What determinations are made with those financials?
So what I realize I'm using this, but what CHSP does, as well as several others, is they require a 990 if your organization does not raise to an audit, we will do the same thing.
Okay.
If the money comes in and.
But we already do that, don't we?
We have not,
Oh,
we have not.
Did it the
We're-
first summer.
The first summer we did it and we've been learning and moving.
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to reiterate my request that we see the RFP before it goes on the street. There's so many questions that have been raised about, well, is this gonna be in it? Yep, sure will.
Make
Is
a
this gonna be
motion,
in it?
Pam.
Sure, I think we all need to see it because we're putting in some very important things this go around.
Let's make a
Let's just
motion.
make sure.
Make a motion.
So I move that before the RFP for the, whatever this is called, the year-round.
Hold on one second.
So we have a
We
motion and a
on the
second.
floor.
I do.
But this is an amendment to the motion
Okay,
and that's.
I didn't realize we had a motion.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I apologize. Well, you.
Totally. Oh, my God. Forgive me. So, May I amend the
From
motion?
the secretary, Eddie.
So he's saying the friendly amendment. Is there a second on the friendly amendment to require the
That we see the RFP.
RFP before it goes out? Now, well, is there a method, if I may clarify, is there a methodology whereby we can engage with before our next meeting to provide approval?
So we will send it out to everyone separately. Redline it, send it back to us separately. We will incorporate those changes and send it out again. Just simply saying, I'm good is okay because you're approving it together. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Do you mind
Okay.
if we do it that
I
way?
do not mind at all.
Okay.
And if
Does that
there's
work with you?
volunteers, yeah, and if there's volunteers to sit on it, that too is part of that.
All right, but so the motion is to accept. Right, who, is it you?
She moved, I'll second.
I made the
No, the
motion.
motion was behind you.
So move.
I think that's it.
Coming second.
Who seconded it?
Commissioner,
Are still a friendly amendment.
And-
that you
They accepted
And she accepted
So
it,
we are
and she seconded it, she
She's
seconded it,
okay.
and so now,
Public comment.
public comment.
There is no public comment.
Shot.
And with that, the motion, do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Marsteller,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
no.
Judge Hobbs,
I do not know what I should abstain from when you're talking budget or not. So as a general rule, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, you call.
All right, next.
Superintendent Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Treasurer Mitchell,
Yeah, yes.
Vice Chair Watts,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you so very much. Now, for SIPs, we're kicking SIPs down the road.
We are going to do, you have some slides in your packet that we can email out to you, because I think we just added them for you to review. What we would like to do is in November, if we can go on with your direction, go to next meeting dates and agenda items.
Yes.
You will see that there are 3 things we need to get some dates and times on. So what we would like to do in November is have a workshop to discuss the request from the county on CHSP and to discuss the SIPS program. So no action on SIPS today. Amy is here, but we're not gonna put her on the spot. So we need to get a date and a time for that. We need a date and a time for the executive committee meeting in December, and we need a date and a time for finance and budget in December.
My only suggestion is that you avoid Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Okay, so we will be looking at, we try to keep everything on Thursdays. So it can't be the 3rd Thursday because that's council meeting.
Okay.
So do you want us to do a doodle poll? How do you want us to do
Do a
this?
doodle poll. Doodle
Okay.
poll for everybody.
We will do a doodle
All
poll
right.
to get the workshop dates
Who's
and the
the number
executive
one?
committee. All right, and governing council meeting is on the 19th.
All right,
Next meeting agenda?
yes, next meeting agenda items are approval. Any final member comments? Yes, ma'am.
I was Karen Thoreau.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I'm with the superintendent of county exhausted.
Yes, everyone's fatigued. Thank y'all so very much for the great work. Thank everyone who's been here, who's made presentations. Thank you, Don. Appreciate you and the entire team. Thank you, Sika. If there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
I'll also move.
All right, there it is.
Is it house member or who's so?
No, but-